Are these just mints? Not gum, are they?
Gum.
Thank you.
I don't know if I still have I can look. No, it's not.
Yeah.
I mostly just do it a couple times.
I'll get the word out.
I was gonna get the whole council down there after a while. All right. So we close our closed session?
Yes, so reporting on a closed session. There was no reportable action on any of the items.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Let's get this party started. If anyone wishes to address the city council on any item considered at this meeting before or during the council's consideration of that item, please enter your name in the electronic kiosk located in the lobby. The city council will allocate up to a maximum of 3 minutes per speaker for each agenda item. Staff reports are available online at the city's website, cityofreading.gov, or in the public view binder located on the podium at the north side of the chambers. Any comments as of yet there? Okay. All right. Call to order. Pledge first. Should know that by now. Mr. Littell?
Ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Reverend Patrick.
No, you're gonna have to remain standing.
Let's pray. Lord, we're reminded of the Jewish statement, if you enjoy something in the world without saying a blessing, it's as if you stole it. And so even in the heat and the smoke here in Reading today, we want to say to you, blessed be the name of the Lord for this time forth forever. We start this meeting by asking for your abundant blessing. We acknowledge that you love to bless your children, and we believe that Christ has secured all of our spiritual blessings. As your people, we boldly ask that you pour out your richest blessing on our community and on this meeting. May the council's decisions be wise. May our community's interactions during this month be sweet. May your presence be felt in our midst. We're reminded that you promise that the blessings of the Lord makes rich, and you do nothing that would bring sorrow. So therefore, we ask that you bless each person here with your grace and wisdom and favor. And all God's people said,
Amen. Thank you. All right, now roll call.
Councilmember Audette,
Here.
Danuka,
Here.
Bresner,
Present.
Latah,
Here.
and Mayor Munz.
Here. All right, presentations. Mayor's proclamation, certificates of recognition honoring the Foothill Little League Junior Girls All-Star Softball Team for winning the 2025 NorCal State Championships.
Yep.
So I'm the president of Foothill Little League. I'm extremely proud of these girls. I wanted to say a little bit about what Little League stands for. Probably the most important thing in Little League is the life lessons that they're going to learn from playing on these teams. So while we're extremely proud of the winning that these girls have done, and it's super awesome, I think the true ripple in the pond, so to speak, is where we see them all succeeding in life 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Softball team team for winning the 2025 NorCal State Championship Tournament. And this is just the beginning, and you're heading to where?
We are headed to Tucson, Arizona for the Western Region Little League Junior Softball All-Star Tournament.
Sophia Nichols.
First up is Sophia Nichols. You want to say it? You want me to?
No, I was going to let, Justin said he would keep it short.
So Sophia Nichols is one of many All-Stars we have here. She's a league age 14-year-old player. This is her first time playing on our All-Star team, so thank you very much.
Francis, or Alexandria Francis.
Alexander Francis. Alexa's also new to Foothill this year. Amazing player. She's had to move some positions to make our defense stronger, and she's adapted that very well. So thank you.
Michaela Behrens.
Michaela, Coach Chuck Mann and Dustin and I had for a few years. Also moves around a lot on infield for us and a really special player. Sophia Axtell Brown. Another player that we've coached for several years, plays everywhere in the infield and outfield when we need her to, and one of our speed demons on the bases. Cadence Dial. Cadence is primarily a catcher, but we've had to move her to the outfield to help out, and she's adapted that well. She also catches when we need her to. Jersey DeRosa. Jersey is one of our left fielders and number 2 in our team in batting average. She's hitting the ball very, very well. Sophie Phillips. Sophie's one of the 2 stud catchers we have, also plays third base and also hits the ball very, very well. Olivia Rowland. Liv, we've coached for several years, has anchored first base on most teams she plays on. She's very good at that position, and she's our leadoff batter. Gracie Park. Gracie, you can see, is limping. She is a very good athlete, a very good softball player. Had an unfortunate accident playing for the freshman, as a freshman on the varsity Foothill team. Broke her ankle, her leg. She's now walking fine. We're hoping she's able to play. We're crossing our fingers. So, thanks, Gracie. Peyton Villarreal. Peyton's one of our shortstops and pitchers, and basically leads the team in hitting the fence. She hits the heck out of the softball. So, Haley Mann. Haley plays third base and also pitches for us. She's our second hitter and also hits the ball to the fence quite often. Riley Haynes. I have to deal with this one on and off the field every day. She's one of our left fielders, and she's a very good bunter and is doing very well.
Well, let's just give them one last clap. Thank you, girls. We hope and pray that you'll hit well and field well, and you'll come back with the trophy again. And please come and let us know.
Why don't you take a picture of
Yeah,
them?
can we
up
take a
here?
picture with them, with the champions?
Ladies, could you come up front here?
Come on down. All of it, council.
Ever, ever.
Where are we now?
We're adjourning now.
Yeah, wouldn't that be? Ooh, I made it. All right. So, do we have any public comments before?
No, but you still gotta read it.
Okay, here we go. The city council will allow up to maximum of 3 minutes per speaker for 30 minutes total at the beginning of the meeting for public comment for non-agendized matters within the city's jurisdiction. The mayor will determine the order of the speakers. If 30 minutes is not adequate to accommodate all of the individuals who have submitted their name through the electronic kiosk, the council will trail this item to the end of the open session agenda. The remaining speakers will address the city at that time. I see just two. Jacqueline, you're up first, and then Mark, you're up second.
I'm Jacqueline. Hi. I found the last 4th of July observance in Anderson very moving. And we sang, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and God blessed, past tense, America. As I was singing, I was brought to tears, for there is still one segment of Americans who are not free to pursue life, let alone liberty and happiness. Those are the neurodivergent, chronic homeless, and that is ironic, for all the indications are that the Constitution was heavily influenced by neurodivergents who have a great capacity for that kind of focus and problem solving. Those stakeholders who have tried have missed the mark in offering opportunities that just don't fit and actually make safety and security of the public and the unsheltered homeless even worse in their efforts, because they just don't understand. For weeks and actually months, I have fed you 3 minutes at a time worth of data each meeting so you could begin to understand. Just like the U.S. didn't get those blessings without fighting a war for them, I feel like I am standing here today trying to lead the charge to another kind of war, a war for compassion. I am asking you to have compassion for the U.S. citizens that have been unemployable for generations and treated like dirt and a blight, just because their capabilities and challenges were so terribly misunderstood, because their unsheltered citizens are fighting their own war to pursue a life of dignity, value, and choice. Right now, there is a window that is quickly closing for several funding sources, and all the Developing Diamonds community is asking is that the elected officials charged with the well-being of the humans living under their authority to get well informed of the needs and capacities of these people and have the compassion to collaborate in providing some of their basic needs and services that you already have at no cost to yourself, actually saving you money to apply to other budget shortfalls. It will make it less costly for the project and easier to grant funds and funding available for every purpose. Please do the right thing and schedule my PowerPoint presentation to consult and get public response for. And at no cost to you, and show compassion to this population. And I'm not asking any funds. I'm just asking for compassion and to get informed and present so we can have a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Mayor, can I
Go
just?
ahead. Yes.
Could you, Jacqueline, could you just connect with me later, or just connect later? I would like to know more about it and see how much time you need and see what we can do. Please.
Paul, you want like an email to your
Just
city council email?
Yeah, just give me your information or something. I can connect with you then. Thank you.
All right, Mark, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor Jack Munns, members of the council, staff, and obviously the constituents that hung around after the baseball team left. It's an honor tonight to be here to recognize you for your wisdom and your insight to see the benefits of this tobacco ordinance that you're about to review here in a short while, and the benefits to our community, but more importantly to our children because of what you're able to do. It's been a long road, a couple of years now that we've been working on this, but it was a collaborative effort between Kristen Schrader, former councilwoman, and our subject matter expert from Shasta County, Debbie Burkett, and Julie Hewing. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible. It's just the work that's involved to do something like this. We have reviewed the proposed ordinance that you have this evening, and it's amazing. You really have crossed a lot of T's and dotted the I's. We came up with a couple of ideas that you might want to consider, and I'm not suggesting that you modify your ordinance this evening. We'd like to get this done. But in page 1 of your ordinance, if you look at the last sentence in the fiscal impact paragraph, currently reads, the fee could increase or decrease if the number of tobacco retailers is found to be more or less than 119. The fee shouldn't change. It needs to say that the fees collected could increase or decrease. Regardless of whether you have 110 or 130, it always needs to be the same fee until you review your fee schedule annually during your council meeting. For clarification, separately, the City Council adopts this initial fee of $1,176.63. The fee would potentially be adjusted annually, and the city reviews their annual ordinance and fee schedule. Number 2, the minimum age to buy tobacco is 21 years of age. There are no exceptions. There was an exception, a carve-out for the military. That was changed in 2019, December 20th, actually, where the federal government passed TO or T21, requiring the minimum age for the purchase of tobacco products to be 21. The military went so far as to outlaw the sale of tobacco products to anybody under the age of 21, not only in the United States, but also internationally. Number 3, regarding the definition of, we think it's problematic, okay? Mobile vending, it's when the subject is the subject of the definition of the retail location. And it suggests that the definition of the retail location is aligned with the state's definition. And that's what we would like to see. So we're proposing a language share there. And the retail location means both of the following. It means a building from which tobacco products are sold at retail, but it's also any vending machine, vehicle, mobile unit, booth, stand, or concession that conducts in person. That's the critical part. In-person sales of tobacco products directly to the public. State law prohibits the sale or display of cigarettes through a self-service display or machine and prohibits public access to cigarettes without the assistance of a clerk. Number 4, indemnification agreement required. That paragraph should read, seize tobacco products in line 4 after the word transfer. And finally, the additional remedies, any language that could include illegal tobacco products will be seized.
Up.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. All right. Do we, I don't see him on the, did you fill out a speaker form? Okay. Todd, you want to come up? Yeah, no. Yeah, well, we're going to, he can speak now though, can he? Oh, this part over here, okay. I think I would know that by now. All right, consent calendar contains items considered routine and/or which have been individually scrutinized by the city council members and are anticipated to require no further deliberation. If a member of the public wishes to address an item on the consent calendar, please enter your name at the electronic kiosk located in the lobby before the consent calendar is considered. It shall be the prerogative of any council member before the consent calendar is acted upon to comment on an item, respond to any public comment on an item, request the record reflect an abstention or nay vote on an item, remove an item and place it on the regular portion of the agenda for a delivery of staff report and or extended discussions, deliberations. Okay, now, Mr. Jones.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Munns, members of the City Council and staff. My name is Todd Jones. I'm the CEO of the Reading Chamber of Commerce, which we also operate Visit Reading. And tonight, I'm really just here to say thank you for our I'm happy to work with Barry and Travis to extend the contract for Visit Reading for another 5 years. Even with the limitation in the budget moving forward, I'm still really grateful to be in this opportunity to work with the city of Reading and for our community, because we know tourism is a big part of our economy and it helps drive revenue to our area. Tourism is a big part of what we do, and a lot of people are coming here to visit our area. Even in these kind of macroeconomic times where tourism is looking different all throughout the West Coast, we're still seeing pretty good tourism numbers at the moment. So I'm just really grateful to continue the work with the city, and look forward to coming back and presenting again on what we're doing this fall. So thank you guys, appreciate it.
We're glad to have you, Todd. Thank you. Councilmember Resner.
I just would like to make a motion to. I would like to make a motion to approve consent items.
Okay. I'll second. Yeah, go ahead. Chelsea.
So I had 2 questions, and then I wanted to pull 2 items.
Yep, go right ahead.
So for item 4B, the payable registry, it no longer includes payroll. Are we going to have that make a comeback? And when can we expect to see payroll again?
So we have registers, but they have Oracle logos on them. So I didn't really want to, and they actually have employee bank information on them. So we're working with the vendor to get that information off so that we can present them to council, because I don't want any even redacted employee bank account information on there. So the registers are there. It's just simply trying to get them in the right format so we can share them with council.
When do you expect that to happen?
I would need to check with Bailey. Probably, I'm hoping soon. We're finally clear a budget, so we're digging into all of this stuff that's kind of backlogged. So I would expect in the next month or so.
Okay, thanks. And then for 4.2A, for SCED, I think Ryan's here. Is it possible, and if the council is amenable, that you'd come back and do a presentation at some point to talk about what you do and how that affects our region and stuff?
So that is actually the plan.
It's a plan?
Yes.
When
So
is that
he'll-
going to happen?
Well, he was waiting until his strategic plan was completed. And since it's not completed yet, he wanted to bring that back before council in September would be his.
September,
Yeah,
okay.
would be his presentation for the
You
annual.
just want us to pay you first, then you'll come back and talk to us. Okay, done. All right. The other 2 that I want to pull is 4.6D and 4.10A.
4.6, did you say D?
D as in David.
All right, 9.6D. And what was the other one?
410A.
410A. All right. All right, so we have a first and a second for the rest of it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a topic vote?
All right. So we'll move on to, looks like item 6.1, public hearing. Public hearing to consider adopting resolution number 2 regarding landscape maintenance district, annual assessment, and fiscal year 25-26.
All right,
Mr.
thank you,
Travis.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. So we are here once again, which we are every year, to reestablish landscape maintenance districts in their assessments as well as their levies. So we're going to roll right through here. I can click ahead. You have the remote? Yes. Okay. So a little bit about LMDs. So landscape maintenance districts are property-based assessments. They are authorized by the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. They consist of frontages, park areas, open space areas. They are most commonly found in subdivisions, but they can be found in particular, like individual businesses or shopping centers as well. We currently have 49 LMDs in 64 different locations, benefiting 4,075 properties. The cost is split between the benefit units, that 4,075 number. So each LMD has a set number of benefit units. The benefit units are individual properties within the district that derive a special benefit from those improvements. Each year, staff prepares an engineer's report, which was included in the packet, and that establishes the maximum assessment and the levy by evaluating historical costs as well as estimating the cost to maintain the improvements in the next year. So the individual benefit units will pay the levy through their property taxes, and the levy is normally lower. It can never be higher than the assessment, which is the maximum allowable cost. The LMD members, again, pay the levy, not the assessment. So when you look at that chart, that's the difference between those two numbers. Most assessments are adjusted annually by the Construction Cost Index. 2 years ago, that number was 8.9% increase. Last year, it was 2.7%, and this year, I'm happy to report it was 1.9%, so a much smaller increase. However, LMDs A, B, and C do not have that mechanism built into their language, so we are not able to adjust the levies for the assessments for those individual LMDs, which is problematic because if they can't go up, they can't respond to inflation, improvements suffer, eventually plants die, we don't have the funds to replace them, so LMDs in those categories can be problematic. They will stay that way until we either reform or disband those LMDs. We hope to tackle that later this year. So the report, levies, and assessments must be approved by council annually and filed with the county to make it onto the property tax roll so that we are able to actually charge on those property tax bills and collect that revenue to fund the activities in the LMDs. So what does that LMD levy pay for? Well, it pays for the direct cost of maintenance, repairs, utilities, and some administrative fees for us to be able to manage the program. Most of that maintenance is then handled by a contractor. Our current contractor is McIntyre Landscape. It's about 1.5 years left on that contract. The difference that we can charge, or the difference between the maximum we can charge and the actual amount we levy is in most cases substantially lower, or substantially different, I should say. So on average, the maximum levy, or the actual levy that we charge, is 32% lower than the maximum assessment. Some of those are actually almost 80% lower than the maximum assessment. And so that gives us wiggle room to respond to year-over-year changes in needs. So say there's an auto accident that wipes out some infrastructure and we can't recover those costs, we have to be able to pay to maintain or fix those improvements. If the irrigation system ages out, which they all do, we have to be able to have the funds to replace that. So we anticipate these costs and change year over year, planning for additional maintenance, additional bringing in some bark or some new plants or whatever that LMD actually needs to maintain the current look that it has or make some improvements as well. So we try to keep those costs down. So essentially once an LMD goes up, we do the work and we try to bring it back down to where it was or where it can be managed at that level again. So on average, across all of the levies, they are down 1.6% throughout. So if you drill down a little bit across all the LMDs of the ones that did change, the majority are actually going down, and that's by an average of 8.7%. And of the 20 LMDs that are actually going up, they are going up by an average of 6.7%. So collectively, again, still going down, but of the ones making changes, most are going down by a larger percentage than those that are going up. So I'd like to go over a few notable changes, and by notable changes, I mean anything that is over a 10% difference than last year. And so there are quite a few this year. I think last year there were about 3 or 4. There's quite a few more, but again, mostly down, so that's good. The first one I'd like to go over is River Park Highlands. So it's actually a 10% increase. So the irrigation system has begun to fail out there, and the LMD is actually maxed out on their levy. So in order to get funds to be able to pay for the repairs and replacement, we have to build up a reserve. So that takes several years because we cannot keep increasing over the assessment. It can only hit that assessment level. So we will build up a reserve over the next few years and then go completely redo that, all of those improvements, and then hopefully return that back down to where it can be managed at a lower level again. There's also a 29% decrease at Hidden Hills. So that actually has a district reserve of $15,000, but it only costs $6,400 to maintain the LMD. So we're able to reduce the levy and use the reserves and equalize a bit over the next year. There's a 14.8% increase at Salt Creek Heights. So we're actually expecting more units this year that did not pan out because of the way that LMDs are timed. They have to be done essentially at this meeting, and these units will be available to be enrolled in October. So we are not able to add them to the LMD this year. So the rest of the property owners will have to carry that additional cost because it now has the park, all of the street improvements that are there. We have to be able to pay those bills. So that one is actually maxing out this year until those new benefit units can be added. There is a 26% decrease at Rio. There was actually a 39% decrease last year, so essentially construction has really slowed down there. So we do not have to anticipate new landscaping to take care of or things like that. So we are able to actually rely on a really healthy reserve, which is $64,000-ish. And so we're able to kind of eat away at that over the next year or two and keep that cost lower. There was a 48% reduction at Chasina Ranch, and that is through the benefit of adding additional units. It has spread the cost out farther. So although we do have the park and the street frontage and all of that there, we're spreading that cost farther. There's 613 units, and we added 169 in this new assessment. There's a 25% reduction at the Vistas. So we anticipated work last year. We raised the LMD rate, and then we did the work, and now we can lower it again and get back into maintenance mode. There was also a 14% increase in Rivercrest Estates, and so the irrigation is aging and it needs more frequent repairs, so we need to anticipate those costs now and start building up some additional funds so that it can replace the parts and pieces as they break. One that isn't on the PowerPoint here, but I do want to bring up is Browning Point. So these are the townhouses behind Winco, kind of to the east. So the vandalism there is substantial, and it has been so problematic that it has maxed out the LMD, and we cannot actually make that whole without reducing utility costs there. So we don't go negative on LMDs because we're not paying for their improvements, because it is a property-based assessment for those homeowners. So we had to reduce expenses in order for them to be able to afford it, because again, they cannot be charged more than the assessment. So they'll be topped out through the year, and hopefully we can get on top of that, and then next year reset back to normal. And so with that, I'd recommend that you hold this public hearing and approve the resolutions affirming the maps on the districts, as well as the annual assessments and levies for fiscal year 2025 and through 2026.
Are the issues over there with the Brown Apartments, is it vandalism, did you say?
Yes, I'm told it's just vandalism. So we're not quite sure what the source of that is, but it's actually improvement. I'd say it's improvement heavy and benefit unit light. So it's already going to cost a little extra there compared to a normal LMD. And if we have vandalism, we have to repair that. And if it's consistent, we're constantly repairing it. If you don't repair it, then you lose the plants, and then no one likes to pay for an LMD that doesn't look good.
Maybe we can ask the chief to look into that. Thank you, sir. All right, any other questions? We open up the public hearing? We will close the public hearing. I will entertain
I'll make a motion to approve as recommended items 1 through 3.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Travis. Mr. Webb, public hearing to consider resolution regarding sanitary sewer maintenance district 01-07. Hope Lane and 119 Seven Bridges Row. Oh, sorry, just Seven Bridges.
Yes, thank you,
Eagles reference.
Honorable Mayor and
Got
members
it.
of the council. This evening, similar to Director Meny, I'll be providing a presentation in advance of a public hearing and then ultimately be available for questions and answers. My presentation is going to be given in regard to 2 sanitary sewer maintenance districts, one being Hope Lane and the other Seven Bridges, and hopefully establishing levies for the upcoming fiscal year. So with that, I will jump into it. Quickly this evening in the presentation, I'm going to touch on a few things. First, what is a sanitary sewer maintenance district? Second, the sanitary sewer maintenance districts that we have in Reading. Then I will specifically provide a little bit of detail and information regarding the Hope Lane and Seven Bridges sanitary sewer maintenance districts. Then I will touch on the maximum assessment and levy information for the upcoming years. And then after, both before and after, if required, I'll be available for questions and answers to help you make sure that you have the information you need to make a decision. So with that, you might be asking yourself, what is a sanitary sewer maintenance district? Well, essentially what it is it is the diagram you see there on the right-hand side of the screen. These are maintenance districts that are put into place for developments, subdivision, commercial, or whatever, that are located at a location in town where sewer lines do not have the ability to gravity feed to the existing sewer infrastructure. So those developments are then conditioned to build what we would call a a lift station, which allows that particular development to drain via gravity into a wet well, and then a pump to pump the sewer up to a higher elevation so then it can gravity flow into the city's existing sewer system. And since these very specific subdivisions or developments within town are the only area that need that benefit, that is why we form the sanitary sewer maintenance district. We currently have 2 in Reading, one being Hope Lane, as shown there. I'm going to try to use the pointer here. The gray area up on top of the screen there, that is the Seven Bridges location. It currently has approximately 74 out of 127 lots developed. And then the second one is the Hope Lane subdivision, kind of the center of your screen down there, the gray area again. Trying to use the pointer. That location has 52 parcels and is complete build out. And it is worth me adding that formation of these maintenance districts is in compliance with the Improvement Act of 1911, formerly referred to as the 1911 Act. You might ask, similar to Director Mene, what do we perform with the funds that were provided? Essentially, we have crews that run around town and do a number of things for wastewater, but part of their routine duties is going out and providing monthly inspections at these facilities, making any necessary repairs, and essentially making sure that they're safely operating. You can imagine that this is infrastructure that has to function, it cannot fail. So these sanitary sewer maintenance districts are put into place so that the city can essentially recoup its costs to perform the maintenance to these facilities through the parcels and their property tax. And I should also mention, that similar to Director Mene's landscape maintenance district, a maximum assessment is initially established when the sanitary sewer maintenance districts are created. And then each year, a levy is calculated based on reserve balance, anticipated costs for the upcoming year. We look at CCI and a number of things to make sure that we have the funds to perform the duties that we need to perform. So I'll jump to Hope Lane here quickly. Formed in 2008, as I mentioned earlier, serves 52 parcels. It's at build out. Its maximum assessment is just under $532. I am happy to report that the levy per lot is going down this year. Previously, it was about $260 per lot. And based on reserve balance and what we anticipate needing for the upcoming year, the recommended levy per lot is $214.36. So again, going down by roughly $44 per lot at the Hope Lane sanitary sewer maintenance district. Seven Bridges, this is located north part of town off of Oasis Road, formed in 2019, currently serves 74 parcels with a future build out to 127. You'll notice that this recommended levy is essentially right at the maximum assessment of $192.97. That's simply because the entire subdivision has not been built out yet and sold, and we currently just need more homes to sell out there so we can recoup the funds that we need to perform the duties that we're doing. With that, I have a chart here that just goes back to the fiscal year 2021 that shows for each of the 2 sanitary sewer maintenance districts how the maximum assessments and both the levies have moved. And you'll notice, as Director Mene mentioned, you'll see the CCI down there on the very bottom. So for instance, you can see for Hope Lane, we started with a maximum assessment in 2021 of roughly $440. And right now, today, we're at a maximum assessment of 532. However, the levy's gone down in that same period from 345 to 214. And then you'll notice similarly with Seven Bridges, again, you'll notice that each year the maximum assessment and the levy are essentially identical. And again, that's because we just haven't been completely built out at that subdivision. And then you got to bear with me a little bit here. I am an engineer, so I do like graphs and charts. So I did have to throw a graph on there. And so the one on the left shows the Hope Lane subdivision. And what you're seeing there are three lines that essentially represent the data we looked in the previous table. You can see CCI, that's the blue dashed line that kind of peaks there in 22, 23. You can see the orange line, which represents the max levy, and then the gray line, the orange line represents the max assessment, with the gray line representing the proposed levy. And then conversely, you'll see the same chart on the bottom right for Seven Bridges. With the main difference, you'll notice that the orange and gray line, again, are right on top of each other because the max assessment and proposed levy are identical, given that we have not achieved full build-out. And with that, I would recommend that you open the public hearing, and I'm available for any questions that council may have.
Any questions at this time? Open the public hearing? Oh, no guest speakers? We close the public hearing. Entertain
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 and 2 as recommended in staff report.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. All right, let's move on to development services. Consider tentative subdivision map application and rezoning application by Zinco Holding to subdivide 2 parcels located 1350 and 3250 Jordan Lane. Thank you. I see
Good
Ms. Bacon
evening.
is not here. But Ms. Lilly.
Thank you, Mayor Munns, council members. Appreciate you this evening. Unlike Director Webb and Ninnis, I am not going to be giving you a maintenance district. This is an entitlement project for a subdivision and rezoning. It's been named the Zinkel subdivision. It's for a project site in the northwest portion of the city, just between Panorama neighborhood and Buckeye. It is approximately 4.42 acres. It is currently vacant. It is zoned RS3, which is single family, 3 units per acre. And in access to the site is off of Lake Boulevard on the south side. You can access the project site and also on the north side off of Keswick Dam, both via Deodore Way. General plan, it is split. The westerly portion of the property consists of 2 parcels. So the westerly parcel is 2 to 3.5 units per acre, and the easterly portion is 3.5 to 6 units per acre. So as you see from these 2 exhibits here, RS3 zoning, the proposal here is a legislative act rezoning. That's why it's before you. Otherwise, it would have stayed at Planning Commission for the subdivision. So the reason for the rezoning, RS3 to RS3.5, because in RS3, it allows only 14 units for the 4.42 acres versus RS3, 3.5 allows for 16 units per acre. And so the proposal is to change from RS3 to RS3.5, which would still be consistent with the general plan on both pieces of this property, split 3.5 units per acre. So what does the subdivision look like? So with 16 units, I'll draw the lines here so that you can see the existing property lines. And a street, Road A and Road B, will be put in with a cul-de-sac to the most easterly portion. And along Deodore and Jordan Lane, these areas will be required to be necessarily, if dedicated, necessary, it will require street, curb, gutter, sidewalks, any overlay paving. And also required in the conditions is arterial wall and or fence. What does it look like as far as meeting our zoning? It is 6,000 minimum square foot for interior lots, 7,000 for corner lots. What's proposed is between just over 7,000 and just under 16,000, so it meets lot size. As far as lot width, minimum is 65-foot wide lots. For interior lots, 70 for corner, and the proposed does meet those 65 minimum and 70 plus on those corner lots. Let me go through a little bit of history. It did go to Planning Commission last year in April. Some of the comments that were brought before the commission were unpermitted removal of trees, site drainage, Deodar Way and its narrowness. A previous biological report was questioned. Wetlands was created from heavy equipment between the biological report and the public hearing. So this, some of these items required to be addressed by the commission, so they actually continued the item in April of '24. And then the applicant came back with additional information that was needed. It went back before Planning Commission just this past year, May 13th. And with that, the commission recommended to council to approve the project with 2 revisions to conditions. They've been redlined in your staff report. Condition 25 is with regards to the fencing material to exclude wood, which are those the arterial wall that I referred to earlier on Jordan Lane and Deodar Way. And also to condition 28 to make clear that the landscape maintenance district is responsible for fencing of all the sides of the detention basin proposed on parcel 10, including the gate. So with that, staff, we find that this project is consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan. Also with the city zoning regulations, we recommend that the council accept Planning Commission's recommendation along with those revisions. Alternatively, council can deny the project. Findings have to be made. It has to be made to be inconsistent to the general plan or some sort of city development standard which poses a threat to public health or safety or welfare. Staff hasn't identified any justification for denial of this project. So hence, the actions we recommend is council make the findings, adopt the CEQA document, which consists of the mitigated neg deck, mitigation monitoring program, offer an ordinance approving the rezoning, authorize the city attorney to prepare and city clerk to publish a summary ordinance, and approve Zinco subdivision. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I have a question, Ms. Choi. Do you recall the Planning Commission being unanimous on this, or was it a 3-2 vote, or usually it says like unanimously supported or something like that? Sorry, 7. Thank you.
I recall the vote was being 1 dissension.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
I'll make a motion to approve all the recommendation unless you have. Oh, sorry.
So it's
Hearing.
we have no. Public hearing is closed.
Now the motion to approve all the recommendations from the staff.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Oh, somebody disagreed on this.
Ordinance. Barry or Jason?
And Mr. Mayor, before we get it, I just want to note there is an update to the proposed ordinance in front of you, and there should be additional copies at the podium at the back of the room.
Thank you.
Members of the public.
Mr. Jibilisco.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I am here tonight with Stacy Larson, Assistant City Attorney, and we will be going over our tobacco retail licensing ordinance. So on March 18th, we received direction from City Council to bring back a licensing ordinance that was specific to smoke and vape shops, and it was to also include a capacity limit and location restrictions. So we presented that ordinance on June 17th. It was not adopted. We did receive further direction from City Council to bring back a licensing ordinance that was going to include all tobacco retailers and also include a location restriction of 600 feet from schools. So we made a few edits to that existing ordinance, and now we have a licensing ordinance that includes all tobacco retailers. So it doesn't matter if you're a smoke shop, grocery store, convenience store, golf course. If you sell tobacco, you will be required to be licensed through this ordinance. And we also included the proximity requirement or location restriction. So this is going to affect new businesses that want to operate post-adoption. So if they're within 600 feet of a kindergarten through 12th grade school, they will not be allowed to operate. This will not affect existing businesses that currently operate within 600 feet of a school. We will be classifying them as being grandfathered in. And here we have the cost of the program. So it will be a code enforcement program. The program will be funded by the existing tobacco retailers. So we have 119 operating in city limits, and that fee per business is going to be $1,176. And now that is going to fund a full-time neighborhood preservation officer and a half-time admin assistant. So they will be operating the program, and it's going to include enforcement, inspections, and education. And I'm now going to hand it over to Stacy Larson, who will be presenting on the rest of the information. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Now, you should have before you what Mr. Curtis referred to as our latest, most revised proposed tobacco ordinance. It has two changes that were made just today, and those changes are to clarify that retailers may only sell tobacco products to individuals who are at least 21 years of age. That removes that California carve-out for active military members. This change was necessary due to a modification of federal law. So although California law did not change, of course, federal law trumps California law. So we've made that clarification in this ordinance. Now, the ordinance that we're presenting to you tonight is very similar, almost identical to the one that we presented to you at the last hearing where we talked about this, the two major differences being the ones that Jason already covered, which is it's now applicable to all general tobacco retailers, and of course, the proximity requirement changed to the 600 feet from K through 12 schools rather than 1,000 feet from youth-oriented facilities. But I'm going to cover some of the highlights of that ordinance and how it plays out in this new version. So first, there are individuals and locations that are not eligible for this license. First, if they have presented or provided false or misleading information in their initial application or a renewal application, they are not eligible for this license. If they have or are involved in commercial cannabis activities, they are not eligible for this tobacco retail license. Now, there are locations that are prohibited, the most obvious being under this draft, that if they're within that 600 feet of K through 12 schools, they are not eligible for a new tobacco license. And also, there are prohibited people that are not allowed to have this license. And most notably, if they've been convicted of specific tax statutes and violations, they're not eligible. Also, if they are not able to get a business license for the city of Redding, or if they've had prior revocations or violations of these particular provisions in the ordinance, then they're also not eligible to have the tobacco retail license. Now, the general requirements are very similar to the last draft. They obviously have to get a license. They also have to have a business license through the city of Redding. They have to obey the law, and that's not just the Redding Municipal Code that we're laying out here, but also state law and federal law. They cannot sell tobacco products to anyone under the age of 21. That's underscoring what Mr. Mazzano had spoken about earlier in the newest draft that we presented to you. They cannot sell flavored tobacco products. That's in accordance with the existing law as well. No mobile vending. That means it has to be a fixed location. So they can't have cigarette trucks that go from location to location to sell these products. And there's no self-service displays. So this means it has to be a person-to-person transaction to actually purchase these products to qualify for this license. They have to comply with all inspections during business hours to ensure that they are in compliance. And these licenses are not transferable. So if they want to sell their business or if they want to move to a different location, they have to get a new license and go through that whole application process again. Now, the penalties are identical to the last version as well. Our goal here was to create a toolbox with lots of tools for enforcement purposes, and so we've kept all of those intact. We can, first of all, deny their application. We can suspend their license if they're in violation. We can revoke their license if they're in violation. We can prosecute them criminally. We can prosecute them civilly. And we can cite and fine them administratively. We can also use the nuisance abatement process. So we have a lot of different tools that we can use to ensure their compliance and to make it very uncomfortable for them if they're not in compliance. Now, the one change we did make to this section from the last draft you saw is we added clarifying language to make it clear that we are not required to follow this very formulaic approach that I've laid out on the screen. So it's not a matter of the first violation, whatever it is a 14-day suspension, and the second violation is a 30-day suspension, and then the third is a revocation. This is not a 3 strikes and you're out procedure. It really depends on the egregiousness of the offense as well as the characteristics of the offender. So the more egregious the offense, it could be a revocation right from the get-go, from the very first violation. Or if it's a repeat offender, even though it's a different business and this person has quite a history of not being in compliance, again, we can go right to revocation or one of these other remedies. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jason. He is our resident expert in this tobacco ordinance world.
Thank you. And that leads us to our recommendation, and that is to offer ordinance for first reading by title only. Now, if it is adopted, we will need to bring back 2 separate resolutions. One is for the adoption of a tobacco retail licensing program, and another is adoption of administrative fines. So the fines would go with our tobacco ordinance. And of course, you can provide further direction as well. Thank you.
Kristen? Al for you to talk twice on the same matter. Sorry about that. Huh?
You can talk in a different manner.
Talking Spanish.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, members, Mayor Munns, and members of the council. I also want to thank staff for continuing this journey with us to bring forward the tobacco ordinance, retail license ordinance that you see tonight. We appreciate the council members in particular taking the time to work with us and get the information that's so important for you when you're making decisions. You want to make decisions based on data. You know, I think that Debbie Burkett is one of the unsung heroes of this process, because without the inspections that she has been doing for 6 years, and most notably in April and May and June of this year, we wouldn't have known what the severity of, I would have known. She knew, but how important those inspections were. For example, in April, she found 36 violations. In May, 20 more violations. 16 were repeat from April. She went back out in June. 5 of the same were violating again in June. The same 5 of the same were still in violation, and 3 months in a row. The importance of what this ordinance will provide is education, enforcement, and inspection. We have to be able to, and that's what's shown across the state, that when communities adopt these ordinances and they have the enforcement that's effective, then it reduces the ability for youth to access tobacco. And that's what this has been all about. We want to protect the health of our children, and this is the most important way that you can do it as council members. Imagine that you're making a statement to protect the health of our children by sitting here. Instead of adopting landscape maintenance districts, you're actually impacting the health of our children. No offense to people who want their landscaping. But this is what's so important. I strongly recommend that you adopt the fee at $1,176. It's a reasonable fee to pay to protect the health of our children, and it's needed to support the program that's been defined by the staff. The other things, what Mark left off, and just as at the buzzer, is we wanted to make sure that if it's not in this ordinance, it's not in this version, you consider the next one, is to make sure that the seized tobacco products are listed in the indemnification agreement that's required, and also that illegal tobacco products will be, if they are seized, stored, and destroyed, that the violator, who holds tobacco resale license, it's at their expense that those products are taken care of, not at the city's expense. So again, thank you very much. We really appreciate that you're taking the time to make a positive statement for our youth. Thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. Ms. Larson and Mr. Jibelisco, you can come back up. I'm sure they have some questions for you. And we'll start with Councilmember Resner.
I do not have any questions. I just want to say thank you for your work. I know that we have belabored this issue, so thank you to staff. Thank you to county staff who's given us lots of information and data. I really, really appreciated that. Thank you for answering all of our questions. I know we had a lot of questions, and I would like to make a motion to approve and authorize as is items 1 through 3.
All right. I'll second that. And we'll go to Councilmember Audette.
Hey, guys. So I met with the team to figure out my concern. This has been going on for 2 years, as Mark Mazzano had said. We'd gone back and forth, mostly because we wanted to make sure we had the data to make sure we were going after the right people. So my concern with this, again, is that we aren't focusing on the vape shops. And so I had met with you guys just to talk about the different things, like I do want a density cap for vape shops. I do want to limit the amount where they can be, that they can't be so close to each other, that there's a certain amount that we would actually just have in the city. We would cap that. Are some of the things that I would like to be there. My concern with having a broad TRO and not just a narrow TOR is that we are sort of diluting our enforcement as opposed to really going after the vape shops, since that is predominantly what the kids are doing. And all of the testimony from all the kids that came up and the coaches and the teachers was that these kids are vaping. As we know, you can take a cigarette and not die, but you can have one hit of a vape and that can kill you, because what's inside of them is kind of an unregulated market. And so it's incredibly unsafe. And so anything that we can do to help. So I had asked them what would be the mechanism by which we can enforce more stringently when it comes to the vape shops. And they said that they could add possibly a level if the council wanted, which is what I had talked about last time, either tiering it in, phasing it in. But they did say that it is possible to add another level to this, so that if you're a vape shop, there would be stricter enforcement and a more focused effort on what they are allowed to do. Another thing that's not in there is the having to have your paperwork and retain your invoices, which is just sort of more onerous for those vape shops because they're very transient in nature. They get a business license, they rent a space, and if they have too many violations, they just close down shop, open up another one, and start all over again. And so the effort that the councils had been trying to make was to narrow that down for them, make it so that they, we give them some rules to enforce the law, and in addition to make it harder for them to do what they're doing. So I don't know if the council I know it has to come back again because it just keeps coming back. But would you be interested in adding enforcement on top of this to target vape shops?
Yes, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I mean, we've had multiple meetings. I think this is a good start, and this is not perfect, but it's something we can feel pretty proud of when we all vote yes, because it protects our youth and the future generations, as tobacco is bad for kids. And I would welcome stricter enforcement in the future to come back with more ideas, because again, this is not the perfect scenario, but we need to pass this today and come back in the future and consider more options. I mean, getting rid of vape in our community is a priority of mine. I would welcome that idea just to get rid of vape and not allow that to be sold in the future, but that's a process that will come in the future, I hope, that we can bring back. So we've debated this, but I think it's important we vote yes, and I hope everybody would vote yes today, just because it protects our future. We recognize this is not perfect, this is not what everybody exactly wants, but we can feel pretty good. This is a good start, so.
Mr. Tippin, what is our timeframe for, was it 18 months to come back with a review?
Well, I think that's really the council's prerogative. I think if the council is interested in having a discussion sooner, I would recommend that maybe a report 6 months from enactment, which would be 6 months from, say, September timeframe. You can see where you're at. You can see if you want to make some changes or if you want to make, other abolishments at that point in time. So, but you'd also have, full-time city staff at that point who is deeply engaged, not only from code enforcement, but remember we have our officer who's full-time on this as well. And so you'll have a fair amount of data that you can build off of at that point, and then this council could decide whether you want to take steps at that point. So really that's up to the council, but based on a conversation like this, I'd recommend at least 6 months.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Councilmember Resner.
I was just going to say I'll amend my motion to include a 6-month report back from staff.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Danuga?
So my question is about simply, you reduced it from 1,000 feet to 600 feet for the future shops, and also change the definition from youth-oriented facilities to school. My inclination was to stay actually 1,000 feet and include all the youth-oriented facilities, not just the schools. Any reason that we are reducing that? I mean, maybe I'm missing something, but my feeling was keep it 1,000 feet at least and include all youth-oriented facilities.
Do you mind if I chime in? I believe that's what we voted for and gave to staff, was the 600 feet. That's something that I think is totally reasonable to bring back at that 6-month report. But that is what we all voted for before.
Oh, okay. No, I was just curious that, I don't know if we can, if we choose to, we can make it 1,000 feet.
Yeah, I'm okay with 600. Some of the research.
I'm fine with 600 also. I was just wanted a little bit more strict.
I did not a lot of research, but I did some. And some of the research said, yeah, it works. The other research said, no, it doesn't work. And then the other research says, yeah, sometimes it works. So I think, my own personal opinion, it seems arbitrary, but I do like the idea of it having some distance away from the schools where we got kids abundant. So I thought 600 was good when I think Mike made that suggestion. So that's my opinion on that. And Councilmember Audette.
Are we adding code enforcement, or are we funding a code enforcement specifically for this?
This would fund a full new code enforcement
A new,
officer.
so
yes.
we're adding a person.
That's correct.
Okay.
Then
well,
just leave it. Yeah.
Any more questions?
No, I'll make a motion to approve as it is written for now with 6 months. Oh, you did. So second the motion.
We have
A second.
first and a second.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Well, hey.
Oh, sorry.
Pause. We did have a second from council.
Yeah,
or Vice
I seconded
Mayor.
it.
Yeah, but I want to make sure that the 6-month
Yeah, I second.
amendment has been approved by the
Yes.
second. Thank you.
Okay.
And just to be clear, this is for the version of the ordinance that was updated and provided to you today. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No.
Okay. Well, you want to change your vote, Tanessa, because it says yay.
Who did that?
Okay.
voted with your heart.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mark and Kristen.
Does nothing, because you guys.
I must say that to Debbie, but also all the people from the Shasta County Coalition, and to both of you, especially you have really advocated for it, given your personal time for it, Mark Mazzano and to Kristen Schrader. Thank you so much.
All right, 9.5B, considers third phase agreement with Northern California Power Agency authorizing execution of the Energy Storage Service Agreement with Trolley Pass Project, LLC, on behalf of the City of Redding's electric utility. Director Zettel.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, Mayor Munns, members of the council. As much as I wanted to have Assistant Director Bowers up here with me, kind of like we had Jason and Stacy, his little one is in the West Redding Little League section finals. If they win tonight, they're going to go to state. Currently, for the stats, they're tied up 4-4, bottom of the 5th inning. They only play 6 innings. So Assistant Director Bowers' nails are probably bitten off. As we know, he's a pretty nervous guy, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff for our teams tonight and our kids in the community. So this is an exciting opportunity for me to present this tonight. It's not often that we bring a large resource portfolio item to the council, and I'll get to a timeline here in a minute. Agenda real quick, we'll go through changes to the resource portfolio. We'll talk about replacement resources that we've looked at, we'll do some analysis of our portfolio on energy capacity and costs, and then the recommendation and next steps. So everything in life starts with a plan. In our business, for the portfolio side of the house, it's our integrated resource plan. We worked on this in 2022 and 23. City Council approved it in December 23. California Energy Commission approved it in spring of this year. This is the starting point. So the plan was that our Bighorn Wind project that we currently have would run through 2031. And then we would start procuring renewable generation and firm capacity energy storage in these years in these amounts. That was the plan, and like all plans, plans usually change. We were notified by the current provider of Bighorn Wind that they were looking to exercise an option for an early termination of the contract. They have that right, it's in the agreement. If they decide to repower the facility, meaning replace the wind turbines with new wind turbines, they could terminate the contract early. They have the right to terminate as early as 2026. It's most likely, from what we're hearing, going to be 2028. That has prompted a change along with tax credit rules and timelines. That's changing. We do have a little bit more clarity. I'd say a lot more clarity now with HR 1 that's passed out of DC on tax credits, both investment and production tax credits. Tariffs are a moving target still. We're looking for those to settle in. All this put together, these are shifting federal incentives on top of a contract change that's caused us to really step on the gas and start looking for some replacement resources. Last year, we worked with Northern California Power Agency. That's a joint power agency that we've been involved with for decades now to participate in an all-source renewable request for proposals. There, in the 2024 RFP, there were 6 standalone energy storage responses, 10 standalone solar, and 14 solar and storage offerings. So a lot across the spectrum, different locations across the state, some out of state. So REU's long-term resource planning team, who's in charge with this task, they dug in and said, what are we looking for? We need to replace the Bighorn Wind project, so we're looking for a commercial operation date, say as soon as 2028, 2029. We need about 70 to 100 megawatts of solar capacity, and we need about 25 to 50 megawatts of battery storage capacity, and it has to be a 10-year contract or longer to comply with state energy rules. So they identified 2 eligible projects. One is the Wildcat Solar Project. We're not here to go over that tonight, but it's important that I mention it because it's part of this solar and storage package. The second item that they identified is the Trolley Battery Energy Storage Project, and that's what we're here to go over tonight. I do want to say that the Wildcat Solar Project, we are in negotiations with the developer. They're taking a pause on pricing because tax credits have now disappeared off the screen for new solar in the timeframe they were going to build. So they're probably going to price. We'll get back to the table and see where that heads. Before we get into the specifics on the Trolley Battery Energy Storage Project, this is the timeline I want to talk about. And I think the chronology is important. If you look at going back to 1981, when we executed a contract for long-term hydropower from the Central Valley Project with the federal government. 1986, we built the Whiskeytown small hydro unit, the base of Whiskeytown Dam. 1991, we acquired the Redding Power Plant from the bankrupt Delmarva biomass facility. 1996, units 1, 2, and 3 went operational, and by 2005, right after the Enron crisis, we commissioned unit number 5. In 2006, we signed the contract for Bighorn Wind, and in 2011, unit 6 went operational for additional capacity, and now in 28, we expect Bighorn to terminate. In 29, we're trying to bring Trolley online. And somewhere in the 28-29 timeframe, we expect to bring a solar power purchase agreement online as well to the council. I think it's going to come together. I think, as I mentioned, due to tax credits, everything's on pause for now, but that's a pricing issue. It's not a development and get it built problem. So jumping into Trolley, Trolley is a project that has been brought by IPA. IPA is a Blackstone portfolio company. They're an independent power producer. They have over 70 of these projects in the hopper across the United States. They built tens of thousands of megawatts of battery energy storage. They're very experienced, and they have the funding and the staff to get it done, so there's no concerns on developer capability. It's in San Bernardino County. I'll get to a map because I like to know where things are, so I'll show you. Total project capacity is up to 400 megawatts. Reading Electric Utilities looking for 45 of that, and I'll show the rest of the partners that are looking for the remainder of the offtake. They think they can get this commercially online by summer of 2029. They have offered 300 megawatts to the NCPA members, but there's more on the table if desired, and I think a few of the members may be taking them up on that. The term is 20 years from the start date of when you start taking delivery of the energy. So it's important that we don't, if council approves this and we execute the agreements, that it isn't 20 years and then 2 or 3 years is burned up in development. It's 20 years from when you take delivery of energy. The price is a little different than what we're used to. Since this is a battery, it's not a generator, it's priced in capacity. So $12.71 per 1,000 watts per month. So if it's 45,000 kilowatts, it's $12.71 times 45,000 per month. So a little over about 6.8 million per year. And I'll get into the economics a little bit further down the road here. So here's the location. If we look at a map, so we can see up at the top, we've got Newport Beach, nice place, Long Beach, nice place. Right there in San Bernardino is where they're looking to locate it. Shooting in a little bit further, this is in what's called like an energy zone, which is important for the battery storage facility tax credits because they get an extra 10% kicker. So you can see you've got Southern California Edison has a the battery energy storage system project. They also have their Grapeland hybrid generating station. So Charlie would go right there in that undeveloped area. It's, you know, in an industrial zone. They don't anticipate any development issues. This is where in that county they want to develop it, which is good. And it's right close and has approved interconnection to Edison's transmission system, which is the most important when you're trying to build something in Southern California. So I don't want to spend too much time on the slide because I think we know, kind of what we would do with the battery, but this is the gray line at the top is a typical day's energy demand. And as you look at the red dotted line, that's pricing. So there's so much surplus energy in California because of renewable energy requirements. The price of power is pretty low most of the day until the sun goes down, and then the price jumps. That's where battery storage comes into play. Some could call it an arbitrage. I call it like a complementary resource where what you need to do is charge the battery midday when there's a surplus of solar and then discharge it when you need it in the afternoon peak. Pricing is very attractive for this because if, for now, let's say we don't get a solar contract in place, what we will do is buy power from the wholesale market in this very low price time to charge the battery, and then we will discharge it and bring it home to Reading via existing transmission contract rights. We can do 45 megawatts for 4 hours each. We could do 30 megawatts for 6 hours and kind of any variant in between. And each day you can elect how you want that to be charged and discharged. Overall, we're looking to get that solar project. So we put that green blob of energy there. That's kind of how solar is going to come up and charge. We would charge most of it into the battery and then discharge it, and whatever we don't or unable to charge in there, it will be sold to the market. We'll be paid for that, and then we can use that money to replace it up here by running the Reading power plant or buying other resources, and we capture the renewable credit. So portfolio analysis, when you're looking at a 20-year contract, what's happening day to day, week to week, quarter to quarter is not very relevant because you have weather issues, you have economic upturns and downturns and things. What you need to do is look over the term of the agreement. We use a production cost modeling system. I don't want to get too geek out on it, but think like a Monte Carlo analysis, right? So what it does is it runs scenario after scenario after scenario, and it changes metrics in each one of the runs and develops a most likely statistical risk case of pricing. So it ensures that our load is met, and then it will buy and sell power to meet the load forecast, and you earn revenues or you pay to the market. And at the end of the year, you have about an average annual spend and then average annual energy costs. So the nice part about this project is with Bighorn Wind coming offline, which is about $15 million a year of expense, you have some headroom to refill that. So this project, like the trolley, as I mentioned, is about $6.8 million in cost, and the remainder of it would come from replacing with, say, a solar project. Then what I think what I'm trying to say in the simplest terms is we don't anticipate a rate impact from signing this contract. but we do anticipate picking up more capacity than we have now with Bighorn, which is important. And we would meet, this will enable us, once we get a solar project, to meet our renewable portfolio standard requirements. If I was bringing tonight the solar project first, without battery storage, I'd be a little more uncomfortable, because I would be recommending that we buy a must-take contract that will generate, and you have to take the energy when it's made, and you sell it when it's generated at lower cost times. And we'd be desperately searching for the battery storage project. So I'm very happy tonight to be bringing this first, because this will actually stand on its own 2 feet from an economic standpoint, and now we can go search for the lowest cost solar project. The process of the contract is, as I mentioned, Northern California Power Agency, the Joint Powers Agency, they're going to execute the agreement with IPA, with the developer. Then each member, including Reading of NCPA, will execute what's called the third phase agreement with NCPA, and that lays out the terms and conditions of, as a member of the JPA, you're binding yourself to this agreement, you're binding yourself to the payments and the performance and all the associated obligations. What's nice for us using a JPA structure is, number one, NCPA does all the administrative work and the burden. Number two, they do the scheduling of the project. They actually have a battery optimizer engine that they run because they have some other projects in place. We don't have that expertise. This is our first one. Everything I've learned, you don't want to learn battery optimization in the California power market as a greenhorn. You like to get involved in that right away. And then they also will perform the power settlements or the dollar settlements with the developer. There's some risk off-ramps that we have in this. So let's say, I don't know, tariffs come in even higher and the developer says, okay, the price is going here. We have some price limits that we've set where we will off-ramp and say, no, thank you anymore, we're not going to do this. Once we get past pricing and the developer commits to that, let's say the developer comes and says, we don't have any money, we can't do this. Before then, they have to post development security because we're committing to them, they need to commit to us, so they're going to post a large sum of money in an escrow account that if they back out after a certain time, then we get paid for that, right? As we move closer to it, they want us to post performance security, meaning, okay, we built this thing, it's here, it's about to go online, you better start taking delivery and pay us. So it's a well-structured agreement. I think the securities and the collaterals are put together well. I don't anticipate any issues. Like I said, I think IPA is a very put-together company. They have a good track record. NCPA's excellent. This is what they do. They build projects. They've got hydro, gas generation, geothermal, solar, and battery storage, and so I don't anticipate issues there. I do think some of the other cities are going to take more of a bite at the apple here, so we'll see how that comes together. We came in pretty strong at 45 megawatts. The pricing was so attractive based on what we saw. We thought we should get in on this before the world changes and prices. We only anticipate going up, not down, as we hear about rare earth materials and mining issues and other things from some other countries around the world. And one last item that I think before I wrap up here is there's been some fires in the news from battery storage facilities, utility scale, I think around Moss Landing area. Those projects are a little older, about a decade old, and they're actually lithium ion. So they're what's in our cell phones and all the devices that we have in cars. That's a much higher performance chemistry makeup for fast charge, fast discharge, all the things that's needed to do what you would expect out of that. This project will be lithium iron phosphate, which is very different than lithium ion, although it sounds the same. It's a much more stable chemistry. It's not as high performance. You can't charge, discharge. What you need to tell it, okay, you're going to charge here, then you're going to stop, then you're going to discharge. It's kind of what we do every day. We're not going to go through multiple cycles in an hour, things like that. But the trade-off is we don't anticipate, fire risk and some of those other things that we're seeing from the current project. So if you read this in the news and you go, oh no, we approved this and now do we own one of these? What happens? In the event that then there's a catastrophic issue with the project, again, we don't own this. The developer owns it. It's their issue. We simply contract from it. And there's terms in the contract that would manage a force majeure type catastrophe with it. So with that, I will recommend the council approves the third phase agreement with NCPA. And I'm here for any questions.
So they're not batteries for our trolleys that we just ordered?
No. If you had these batteries in those trolleys, you might be disappointed in how fast they go, yeah.
Councilmember Audette.
If I may, I would just note that the contracts for those happened to come across my desk at the same time as the contract for this agreement, and it did cause some confusion in the email searches.
Could you tell us, maybe you mentioned it, but Bighorn is set to go offline when? And I know you said Trolley would come online summer of 2029, but do you have a definitive date yet of when Bighorn is gonna wrap with us?
No.
Or range?
So here's the range.
Yeah.
When we were initially notified by the current owner of the project, it was November of 2026. However, tax credits have disappeared. Well, they haven't disappeared, but you better get your shovel out and get into construction real soon, because if you don't, you're not going to get the tax credits. So then we were notified by the developer that maybe we're looking at the end of 2028. So we should hear more by September. I think they're trying to buy time to figure out what's going on in the market. See, could they possibly get new wind turbines ordered? What's the lead time on those, right? And what's changed in the recent tax credit law is under construction. It isn't go out, put some cones out, and turn a shovel load of dirt. It's substantially under construction. So I think people are trying to figure out what does substantially mean and can we get there. So if I had to put my best guess on it, it's going to be end of 2028 for Bighorn. We're going to run through, which is fine with us. We're used to it. We've had the project since 2006. This is scheduled to come online June of 2029, so right before summer.
So what happens in that gap?
In the 6 month gap?
Or any gap at all?
Any gap at all. What we're trying to avoid is summer. So we can handle winter. Our average load is 100 megawatts per hour. Spring, we have so much hydropower coming at us that the Reading power plant's offline anyway. But when you come into summer, we can have peak days of 220, 240 megawatts. So we're targeting June 2029 is when this is going to be commercially available. I personally think they'll beat that. Once you get started on this, they have an interest to get this built and start getting payment streams moving to them. So I think they're being conservative with the commercial online date. I think they'll be online probably January, February 2029. So.
And then as far as needing the credits, as long as we have an agreement, does that count as credits for the state of California?
So this won't provide renewable energy credits, but executing a solar purchase agreement, will provide it. We have the capability, as we did for this current compliance period, to let the California Energy Commission know that we may or may not be able to meet compliance strictly in the terms of providing the RECs. But we do have an optional compliance mechanism that says we remain in compliance with you, exercising this option because we were not able to source the renewable energy due to these reasons. And primarily for us, it's exceeding budget, right? So we designed an optional compliance mechanism that doesn't require compliance at any cost. It requires compliance at a reasonable cost. So if we were to fall short of that, that's what we would file. If you're pursuing a contract and there's delays for whatever reasons, which I've talked to other utility directors, they're all in the same boat. They're in the midst of some contract process with solar right now, and all the solar developers are going, wait, hold on, tax credits went away. We don't know what to do. So this is going to be statewide of an issue of kind of a pause and a freeze on these projects until it thaws out and people can renegotiate their contracts.
So,
Any other questions?
yeah. So even the solar, basically this battery storage is going to be useful if you have surplus solar energy, right?
Correct.
And that's a question now, it's $1 million question, $1 billion question, that whether we'll have enough solar energy supply or not.
Right now, there's so much surplus
Yeah, there's
solar
so much.
that the prices are going negative in the middle of the day, meaning you will be paid to take it out of the market.
Okay, so you have access to that as we speak.
Yes.
We don't have to buy extra for that.
No, and the reason that this project was so enticing to us being in Southern California is there's thousands, tens of thousands of megawatts of solar projects all sending energy from, say, the Imperial Valley, Arizona, into SoCal. Because it's a lot easier to build solar in the desert than it is build something in Rancho Cucamonga. So where you want to put your energy storage is in that high price zone, and that's why this is so attractive. I'm not quite sure this would pencil in Reading. We're surrounded by a couple thousand megawatts of hydropower, and we're the only load. right? So I'm not sure the economics.
I just wanted a clarification that we have you're getting some extra storage facility, but you have enough energy that you can use the storage. You don't have to buy more energy for this.
Yes, so we have to get into a solar contract by state law, but there's enough surplus energy from all the existing solar that I'm not sure you would ever really even have to. If the state didn't say you had to, I'm not sure you would need to do that. I think this would stand on its own legs for 20 years.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Well, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Travis, 9.6D, David. Adopt resolution appropriating park and lieu funds for the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Center remodel project.
Thank you. And at Councilmember Audette's request, I can give you a presentation on it, or I can have some.
do.
Okay, so we don't have any particular PowerPoint prepared, but I can walk you through some of the history and why we are here tonight to do this project. So in 2022, when we had our ARPA projects available, or our ARPA funding available, one of the projects that was proposed is a remodel and improvement to the Martin Luther King Jr. Center. And that project was started through the design process at that time. So as we moved through that, things transitioned and I became the director, and we looked at that project critically and figured out that, one, we weren't going to be able to proceed as originally planned because the way that the project was structured was essentially a visual enhancement with some light touches inside, things like carpet, HVAC, basically general small improvements. And so what we thought is that we should look at the totality of what we want that building to be and figure out how we would get there. And so what we came to realize is that the improvements that we do here would have to be undone to do the appropriate improvements that we would like to see in the future. So say we want to do an exterior improvement, well, we figured out that we have to actually remodel the restroom. Or so say we wanted to proceed with the original plan. It was exterior improvements, it was the aesthetic. And then eventually we want to add capacity to the building. Well, then you're triggering a bunch of ADA upgrades to the building. And so part of the original project was a remodel of the restroom. Well, we found out we have to essentially undo the wall outside of the restroom, expand the restroom, undo the remodel of the restroom, and then redo the remodel of the restroom. So we thought it would be a wise way to spend money on a feasible plan. So what is step one in our overall project? Where should we put our money first? The way that the project was originally designed was we have a set budget, let's do this and get this over with for now. But we wanted to look at the larger future of what that building should be and how it should function. So it needs a kitchen expansion, it needs additional office space, it needs restroom upgrades. So we want to know exactly what order to tackle those and then get that design process done. So we came back to council when we made ARPA funding adjustments toward mid to late 2004. And once there was a whole slew of those adjustments that basically set the stage for what we would do with the ARPA money, because after the end of 2024, you were not allowed to make changes to that. It had to be encumbered funding. So this contract essentially was the remainder of our encumbered funding, and the rest of that funding was relinquished for other purposes. So we stuck with this contract. What we did not have and what we could not encumber at that time was the required staff time to be able to pay for the review process and the engineering process that the Public Works team has to go through on all capital projects. And so we could not encumber that as a blanket, for staff time type of budget. So now we are returning to council now that we have something for the Public Works team to review so that they can actually have a budget to be able to do that work, because they essentially, much like you would hire anyone, we fund their hours for this type of work. So they have an overhead rate as well as their staff time. And so without a funding source, they would not have any real mechanism to be able to do this other than going to, say, the general fund or some other type of funding mechanism. So In parks, we have two main funding mechanisms outside of general fund allocations. We have the Park Development Fund and the Park in Lieu Fund. Park in Lieu Fund is a development fee that is designed to essentially get land, purchase land, make improvements to parks for capacity when certain development requirements are triggered. So any development under 50 units, the developer pays a Park in Lieu fee. Any development over 50 units, there is an option to pay Park in Lieu fees, or they can actually provide land. And so the fee is calculated based on the number of units and the number of square footage that the developer would have to provide. So this is an appropriate use of those funds in that it will provide additional capacity at the center. And because we can expand it, we can expand programming. The building is overall larger. It is not a maintenance project. So essentially that is what we were trying to accomplish, and appropriating $50,000 will allow us to continue that process and then seek out grants for sort of the ultimate build out of that building.
It didn't include what the plan was, so I was confused as to why. So when did the design begin?
The design began in 2022, and it went through essentially the first year or so. And then once, like I said, we took a different look at that project and figured out, okay, well, what's the smartest way to spend the funds? If it's all taxpayer money, what's the smartest way to execute this project? So the overall project, we wanted to look at essentially what's not an aesthetic improvement, what's a functional improvement, and then start from there.
But you lost the money by doing it that way. So what do you think the cost is going to be now that you're going to go after? Like what's ultimately going to be the cost of?
Yes, I elected to lose the funds in order and provided them essentially to the rest of the eligible ARPA expense categories that we had, because we didn't think that it was a wise use of those funds at that time. And we thought we would be much more successful pursuing grant funding through essentially state programs that we have had much success with. We don't have the full build out of that plan set done to have a full cost estimate, but we added substantially to that project. $560,000, I think was the original amount, was not going to be sufficient for the original scope of the project with the way that inflation has gone. So we opted to have a better project with essentially a plan set that we could take and show a grant agency and say, hey, look, we're right there. We would like to do this project, which grant agencies love. When you are actually prepared to do something, not, well, we're going to take a few years to design. I've definitely been in that boat before. And so we do have a plan to expand the center, to remodel the kitchen, to remodel the restrooms, to add capacity to that building in order to improve the services and the capacity of that.
Do you have a price tag for what that's going to be? You said
This is going to be a multi-million-dollar price in the future. We just don't have what it is at the moment. So we're working toward that, because that is also something that the engineering team, Michael's team, helps us develop. Is an engineer's cost estimate.
So the next step is going to tell us what the cost of that project would be?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
And you'll let us know?
Yeah, definitely, because we will come to council for authorization to seek out grants, because we're looking at park grants as well as the facility. And so you will have all of that information. And if we have anything relevant about our plans that we can share, we can do a presentation on that in the future to show you exactly what the aesthetic and improvements would look like.
Do you have plans to come back with an update on all, because we have a lot of grants sitting, because Panorama, South City, is there a plan to come back with the updates on sort of where we are with those things and what we're waiting on?
Yes, we regularly provide those to the Community Services Advisory Commission, and I can provide them to council if you would like to
that would be
request
great.
a presentation at some point.
I would like to request, that's the item 12 then. Oh. Who's on CSAC?
You're more than welcome to attend with me.
Okay, let's go.
Let's go, then we don't have to come back and hear it.
No, they should come. The public probably also wants to know what's happening with South City Park, what's happening with
And the public
all
can
those
come to
things.
that meeting too.
It is a public meeting.
Okay, so if you could come back, that would be awesome.
And we are actively updating our websites that have all of the project information, so we're trying to get that out more into the public for those purposes.
Councilmember Resner.
I would like to motion that we adopt the resolution approving using Park and Lieu fees.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Looks like unanimously passed.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Mr. Travis?
Mr. Mayor,
All right.
just for
Yes.
the council's information. We actually at a director level have been discussing doing some more regular updates on a department by department basis. And so, we see that from the police department. You're going to get a fire update next. And we've been talking about doing some more departmental just overviews, not related to specific item A, B, or C, so that you can get a better picture sort of overall what the department's up to. So be looking for that over the next months.
Awesome, thank you. Chief Van Landingham, you're up. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Thanks for letting me take a few moments to just update you on what the Reading Fire Department is looking at currently moving forward now that the budget has been approved and adopted. I'm going to talk a little bit with you tonight, just touch on some of our performance measures, some of our statistics, give you a quick little update on the budget impacts that we're going to experience this year, update on the fire season that we're currently in, and I'm going to touch on Station 9, and I'll wrap up with some highlights and kind of what we're going to be up to this next 2 years. My hope was to bring this to you prior to fire season, but we are smack dab in the middle of fire season already, so a little late getting it to you. So starting with our performance measures, we look at various performance measures each year, and there's a pretty good list of them. What I've done for you here tonight is just highlight a few of the significant things that I think you should know. I've included the last 2 years or 3 years of data for you. So basically our calls for service, that's when somebody dials 911 and it doesn't fall into the law enforcement category. Pretty much everything else is either EMS related or fire related. So we're in the ballpark again this year to be somewhere between 16 and 17,000 911 calls annually. The way that translates to our incident responses will put us at about 20,000 or just over 20,000 unit responses. What that means is for those 16 to 17,000 calls, many of those call types take multiple engines to mitigate the incident. So a typical medical call will send just an engine. A traffic accident on a high impact road, for example, may get 2 engines and a battalion chief. Of course, structure fire takes 4 engines, a ladder truck, a battalion chief, and so on. And so those 16,000 calls translate to about 20,000 incident responses annually. So we're a pretty busy department out of 8 firehouses here at the City of Reading. When we look at response times, we look at the average, of course, that's where we start, and that's a typical thing that the public likes to know. What's your average response time? We're doing pretty well with that. We fall in just over 5 minutes, but the actual benchmark that we look to is a national standard of 5 minutes and 59 seconds, or basically 6 minutes, 90% of the time. So while we don't have that codified anywhere here at the city, that is a benchmark that we shoot for. And so our 90th percentile response times are about 2 to 3 minutes higher than what our average is. So what that means is about 70% of the time we're hitting our 90% percentile response time, if that makes sense. Of course, we look at our training hours. Your firefighters are in the stations. They're required to get at least 120 hours annually in training. And so many times our day is taken up with, particularly in the morning and early afternoon, we have training sessions for our firefighters. And they're touching on everything from structural firefighting to mental health to our medical calls and whatnot. So we are certainly putting in the time and effort to making sure that our firefighters have the proper training to do the job that they are asked to do. When we look at some of the national standards to compare ourselves or our city or our jurisdiction to other jurisdictions in the nation, we look at firefighters per 1,000 residents and fires per 1,000 residents. So for the firefighters per 1,000 residents, we're doing pretty well. I think the city manager has mentioned this before. We have a pretty good number of firefighters. You can see back in 23, we were just below the national standard. During the height of 24, with the SAFER grant we had, that brought us a little bit closer. And now we're teetering back down as we're attriting out firefighters due to the budget situation. Now, the more significant thing I want you to pay attention to is the fires per 1,000 residents. So the national average is 1.46 or so of fires per 1,000 residents, and here in Reading, we're much higher than that. So 4.26, and so I can say that your firefighters, they fight a lot of fire in this community, and for our firefighters, honestly, they love to do the job, and so we're really good at it, and we see a lot of fires for sure. But that's still a pretty small percentage of what we do. It still equates to maybe 4 or 5% of the total response times the responses that we make. Because our EMS calls are about 65 to 70% of what we do in this community. So as we transition over to our statistics, typically we run anywhere from 300 to 400 fires annually. That's all types of fires in this community. 2025, we're up to, this is data from as of yesterday, I think we've had 154 fires so far. Of those, a high percentage of those, in fact, last we looked was about 50% of those are one-way related to our transient population. Our arson arrests in 23 was 26. We had 24 in 2024, and we're at 13 arrests currently this year. We do have a pretty high arson problem in our community, higher than most other communities throughout the state of California. Of course, we look at our number of deaths and injuries, and thankfully those numbers stay pretty low. Our estimated property damage and content loss usually is right under 10 million annually, and so this year we're about 1.1 is what it looks like now. I think that number needs to change. We just ran a 2-alarm apartment fire the other day that displaced 6 families. So out of all the fires that we run, this is kind of a breakdown of the types of fires. So we have a pretty decent balance between structure fires and vegetation fires. Those are the bulk of what we run. And of course, we have many other odd type fires out there as well, vehicle fires and such. But you don't see this in a lot of communities. And because we live in the WUI, the wildland urban interface, where the wildland interacts with homes and businesses, we run a lot of vegetation fires in this community. All right, so touch briefly on some of the budget impacts that you guys probably know about. Most of this, some of this was talked about, some of it was not. Of course, our lower staffing numbers, eventually that'll impact our efficiency when you have 3 firefighters on an engine that does, significantly a better job, a quicker job than when we had 2 on an engine. And of course, adding a 4th firefighter on that engine, your efficiency even improves more. The main thing we're anxious about is the firefighter safety issue of getting firefighters time to rest and cool down in this hot environment so that we can get them back into the fight. Our rolling stock impact, we're not going to be able to purchase any new engines anytime soon. Engine 2 and Engine 7 are up for a purchase, but there's other issues around that as well. It's not just our issue. Nationally, there are limited numbers of fire engine manufacturers these days, and the cost is extremely high. And right now we're looking at 3.5 to 4 years to even get an engine if we were to order it today. So we will continue to maintain our engines and apparatus the best we can, and hopefully we'll be in good shape. Our loss of the fire marshal position, the potential impact there is basically around the plan review process, working with developers, and implementation of our community wildfire protection plan that recently was conducted. There's a number of recommendations in there that we're going to be working through. The fire marshal that job is being done by our deputy fire chief of administrative services. So that person is essentially doing 2 full-time jobs, but we will continue to monitor that to make sure that we keep our development community moving along as we need to. Some of the equipment needs, this is stuff that you may not have heard about throughout the budget process. This is our O&M, if you will. Things like fire hose, foam, extrication, extractors, things to clean the bunker gear that we have, our protective gear. These things we're just gonna have to push down the road a little bit. These items were up for purchase this next 2-year budget cycle. So these are things that we will just kick the can on a little bit until we get into a better budget situation. The SCBA's, you will hear more about this. We do have a grant that we applied for to receive SCBA money. That's for $1 million, but the cost of the SCBA's is gonna be 1.4-ish. And so we'll have to figure out how to come up with that other 400,000 to make sure that we can replace all of our SCBA's. And of course, station maintenance. This doesn't have anything to do with remodeling stations or building new stations. This is just, making sure that we can continue to provide service to the generators, the doors so they operate, fix little things like we have a driveway that's sinking at Station 4. We need to replace things along those lines. A lot of that money was taken, and so we will massage that how we need to over the next 2 years to make sure our stations stay good places for our firefighters to work. Transition to the fire season outlook. Obviously, we're in fire season now. We have 3 engines and 2 battalion chiefs that are on the fire just northeast of us. We've had significant fires already in the last several weeks here in the city, and I'm just thankful for our relationship with our regional partners, CAL FIRE in particular. It's been pretty touchy. We've had several evacuation orders on the fringe of the city, and it's been a lot of work. But our firefighters are ready, and they're excited for the fire season. So theoretically, operational impacts, slower initial fire containment, increase in 2-alarm fires, larger, longer lasting fires, increased workload and fatigue. That's the one I'm really worried about, having less firefighters on the engines. But nothing has jumped out at us as of yet that is critical at the moment. This slide here for you is pretty much the same slide that you see every year in this part of the country. It's hot. It's dry, and less rainfall is coming, and we've got lightning coming, and so fire season is here, and we're going to have more monsoonal activity and more north wind events, which is one of the things that we're keeping an eye on. That north end of the city through the Buckeye area, that area is significant concern for us. While I have your attention, I'm going to put in a plug for Station 9 again. This is a picture of our property we own out there at Tarmac and Shasta View. We did quite a bit of data analysis several years ago now, about 3 years ago, to make a determination where a fire station should go. There's a need for a fire station, for example, up towards Oasis and Old Oregon Trail. There's a need for a station on the west side, other side of Eureka or 299, kind of near Buenaventura. And then there's a need on the east side as well. This, as we started looking at data on the east side, this is what we call a heat map. So red is bad, green is good, and this is in terms of our response times. These are all the responses over, I think, a 2-year period throughout the city. So you can see Station 9 location is going to be off 44 and Shasta View. Right around this area here. So there's quite a bit of red there. And if you plunk a Station 9 down there, it goes green. And it doesn't just go green in that area. The rest of the city population areas go green as well. So red, bad, no Station 9. Green? Good. Station 9. That's a big help for us. So keep putting in a plug for that. This chart right here is about our 90th percentile with Station 9. So the blue is currently where we're at. You saw on one of the earlier slides, our 90th percentile is over 8 minutes throughout the city. And if we plunk in a Station 9 in that location, it comes down to about 8 minutes. So it doesn't get us to the 6 minutes that we'd like, but it gets us closer. This slide is a little more meaningful. It shows you how the work is distributed across all the fire stations. The blue is our current load. You can see Station 5 there in the middle is at Enterprise and Churn Creek. They're approaching 4,000 calls a year, which is a very, very busy house. And of course, Station 1 and Station 8 are busy as well. As you plunk in Station 9, the red bars identify Station 9. So your work level for Station 5 drops significantly. So right now, Engine 5 is running the bulk of the calls in that Station 9 area. And if Engine 5 is tied up because they are one of the busier engines in the city, then it's Engine 8 or it's Engine 1 coming from other parts of the city. And now we're leaving those areas uncovered. And so when the second or third 911 call drops in those areas, other engines are having to come from other districts to cover them. So we have a high rate of overlapping 911 calls throughout the city, and that contributes to our higher response times, if you will. All right, moving towards the end here, some highlights and looking forward. Just pulled this from our fire prevention specialist, Sarah Roth. Many of you know her. She oversees our CERT team. She has completed 157 defensible space inspections. That includes our real estate inspections, the AB 38 inspections required to be done in order to sell a property in a high fire threat zone. She's done about 20 public education events. Of course, we try to get her into senior living facilities and businesses and schools and the like, so she's doing a great job there. And she's starting to use the CERT team. So that's the whole purpose of the CERT team. It's up and running now. We have about 20 very excited volunteers. They put up tents out at some of the different events that you may have been at. You'll see a Reading Fire logo tent. And then our CERT members are in green t-shirts or green vest with CERT on the back. And they're out there to provide public education, fire safety education, and of course to recruit more people into the CERT team. One of the things that we're going to start utilizing them to and train them up on is providing some logistics and rehab for some of our larger incidents here in the summertime. I'll tell you that just a couple weeks ago, I was the duty chief, and when we had the fire down south, so I'm covering the city with anything else drops and trying to get callbacks, firefighters into the stations to cover overtime engines, if you will, while that fire is going on. And then I get a call from the incident commander and they needed 115 burritos. So if I can get the CERT team to figure out how to pick up 115 burritos instead of me having to do it, I'm in favor of that. So that's some of the stuff that we'll be utilizing our CERT team for in the future. And then this is a pretty significant first for the city of Reading. We have our first ever Firewise community down Crown Estates at Gervan and Pitt. So Firewise community is driven by community members. It's not something that the fire department can do for a community or a neighborhood. It's neighbors working together, building a plan, collaborating with each other, and then they can go for grants through the federal government to get some mitigation funds to help mitigate, their properties and some of their green spaces in their neighborhoods. So very exciting that we have our first Firewise community in Reading. Some of the stuff we'll be working on, this next 2-year budget cycle, we're going to start billing for some of these services, like our first responder fee was approved by council a few years back. That is now started. Our first set of bills went out mainly for lift assists earlier last week. So I'm sure you may be hearing about some of that. and I'm happy to come back and talk to you about it in the future if need be. We're going to start billing for negligent fire ignitions as well. So we'll see what type of revenue might come in through these initiatives, but mainly it's a effort to curb some of the overuse and the neglection that we have going on in our community. The strategic plan and standards of cover, both are grant funded. Those are starting to kick off the RFP process. We are in a spot right now with the budget the way it is to be in a planning phase, if you will, for the Reading Fire Department. Look at the next 3 to 5 years. Talk about, this standards of cover will really do a deep dive into the resources that we have for the risk that we have in this community, and it will help us understand where we need to be in the future. And then the strategic plan kind of bow ties all that together. So that'll be something that hopefully we'll get you guys involved in at various levels over the next year and a half or so. We also received grant funding for cancer screening for our firefighters. As you know, cancer is a major concern for firefighters, and we're going to be able to offer screening to them here shortly. That is out for bid, I believe, to find a vendor. So all in all, your firefighters are well trained, they're well equipped currently, and they're ready for fire season. And ending on this slide, this was Happy Valley Fire Protection District. They're standing in front of their brand new engine, which is Reading Fire Department's old engine 45. So you donated that engine to Happy Valley. This is the fire chief sending you a letter, thanking you for that. And that engine is now up on the green fire on our strike team fighting fire. So it is a good service that we were able to provide for Happy Valley Fire Protection. So that is the fire department update in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Audette.
So have we tried doing first responder fees before?
We've never implemented it.
So they passed it, but they didn't implement it?
We didn't implement it because we couldn't find a billing entity that could structure it the way we needed it to be structured.
So who's going to are you doing the billing, the fire department, or is it code enforcement?
Well, right now, we're baby stepping into the first responder fee with the lift assist. So we have about 1,100 lift assists that we do annually. And the city is going to do that. So finance department.
So we're just going to send letters from the finance department?
Invoices,
with
yeah,
an invoice
bills.
for a bill for a lift assist. I was did a ride along. There's a lot of lift assists.
Yeah.
A lot. So it's going to, and what are the chances that we think we'll actually collect on those things?
Well, we'll see. We don't know what our collection rate is in this community. I gave a conservative estimate of about 25% collection rate. So if we were to collect 25% of 1,100 at that rate, I believe
the rate?
it's $489 currently on the new
$489.
master fee schedule that you just approved. 200 to 250,000.
Does Medi-Cal pay for invoices for
Medi-Cal
lift
does
assists?
not. Private insurance will. Right.
But many of these lift assists are in
Facilities.
And so, theoretically, they should have people on staff who can help lift.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be relying on the public.
We
taxpayer
do
to
supplement
that.
their workforce for sure.
Yes.
It's a very expensive truck.
Yeah,
to
and
go
the
lift.
ordinance that was approved by the council does give the chief the ability to waive a fee if he feels like it was, inappropriate and, we should have responded and we should have done that. So he has flexibility to waive the fee as necessary.
Councilmember Danuka.
Thanks, Chief.
So I'm a little bit surprised to hear this. So out of 1,100 or so lift assists, how many are from a healthcare facility or a nursing home or whatever?
The majority of those are at
so you can build those facility then?
well, these bills will go to the patient.
Right, I understand that, but why don't we ask the facility to who calls and ask them to pay for it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we would expect to happen is that those patients are going to turn around and go, hey, we shouldn't have to call the fire department. You are calling the fire department, not me. You should have staff here that can help pick me up. So we think we're going to see some changed environment with those facilities as we start providing those billings, and then those billings get passed on from the patient to the facility, et cetera. So we think that's going to have some opportunity to change. And as the chief noted, we're still trying to find a vendor who can actually expand the program to additional charging for medical responses.
Yeah, I'd like to learn a little bit more about this later offline, but it seems like we have 4 times the fire of national average for our population, and we have a limited number of firefighters, and we are providing a service that really should be duty of other services to provide. So
I encourage a ride along.
I'm sorry?
I would encourage to do a ride along with the fire department. You'll see.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
No, I'm familiar with it, and I've always wondered why. But
Right, and then maybe I'll have the chief remind me on the Friday update, I'll send out just a copy of the ordinance that was adopted so that you can kind of see how it's crafted as well, just as a reminder.
Right.
One thing that this budget cycle has, really forced us to do is start looking at some of the low acuity, non-emergency things that we do. Obviously running out of the house over 20,000 times a year, that takes our unit, our fire engine out of position to be able to be available for the more critical heart attack or the fire that is raging. So, as we start getting busier and busier, we need to find a way to either recoup some of that cost or stop doing those type of services, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in conversation with our local EMS providers as well, to talk about options, and we're exploring all those options.
I think we really need to look at that seriously, because firefighters are highly specialized people whose job should be to really first thing fight fires and do some emergency response, but not of non-emergency response. So yeah, we really need to look at that.
I agree with everything everybody said, but however, my 97-year-old grandma fell, as you know, and you guys went over there. She felt pretty good, and you guys helped her up, and she was very complimentary of your guys, and so I was thankful for that.
Glad she's doing well.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 9.10A. Be Mr. Tippin or Councilmember
Well,
Audette?
as Greg is making his way up, this is a standard item that we've taken. I think this is the 9th year in a row. And so when we pay our unfunded liability to CalPERS, if we prepay it by the end of July, we get a substantial discount. And so for years now, we have utilized funds that are within other departments. And last year, I think, was the first year, we've utilized REU, water, and wastewater. What that helps is that everybody then can get a discount, if you will. So the way the system works is that it's all for one. And so the miscellaneous unfunded plan, REU can't pay for it on their own, nor can water or wastewater. So it's an entire general fund thing, if you will, for the most part, because it's a miscellaneous package. And then, of course, we couldn't pay for safety on our own either. So what we do is have a pooled cash, essentially, pay for the pre-fund. And then we pay those various departments back at the pooled rate interest. So they are made whole through the balance of the year from July 1st to June 30th. And everybody reaps savings. In the case of the general fund, after paying interest, it's about $400,000 of savings to the general fund. So Greg can add any context, or we're here for any questions.
Go ahead, Councilmember Audette.
What is the split? Is it just split evenly 3 ways? REU, water,
We base it on their cash balance. Basically, we're going to use the end of May. It's kind of an estimated number because obviously that's not an audited number, but they all have healthy enough reserves to where that they'll be perfectly fine making that kind of front. So it's roughly 33% each. Actually, wastewater's a little lower, so I think the other two are around 35, and wastewater's around 28 or something to that effect. I have it right here if you want me to. Well, actually, I don't have the percentage. I have the cash balances, but not the percentage.
But it's about 35, 20.
Yeah, 35, 35, 30, yeah.
And then, is this just a typo that says it has to be paid
Yep.
by June? Okay.
Caught it. Sorry.
It's the end of the year, though, right? Like it's 26?
Yeah, by the
Okay.
by the end of June 2026, we'll have fully repaid.
We've always repaid.
Always
on time.
repaid it in
Yeah,
full.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But this is the second, so I couldn't find this for years 21, 22, and 23, like what our payments were. And I'm wondering if it was put into the budget cycle? Like, I couldn't find
We've
it as.
always brought the staff report, so I'd have to go look for it to confirm. It may have been that we brought it in June instead of July. I'd have to look for it, but I know we've always brought it because, you know, every year this is just kind of has become a routine business item for us. But I can give you the amounts if you want them.
Yeah, I was just curious, would you email it to me? I was just
absolutely.
curious if it was maybe put into the budget.
Well, I will tell you, around that time frame, we started planning that council would approve it. And so the first year of the budget, we would go ahead and more or less adopt it. So there wouldn't be a resolution with it, i.e. there's not a resolution with this one here today because we built it into the budget, assuming we were going to prepay it. Year two of the budget, it's not built in because I don't have the prepay number until about a month from now. I'll get the prepay number from CalPERS. Once I get that, then I'll know what the prepay amount is and I can actually know what we're going to save next year. But in the case of savings, oftentimes we don't come back to council and say, hey, we saved money, you know, and do a resolution to lower
I like
the
those
budget.
though. I like the we saved money.
Absolutely. But
songs.
so I wanted, if it was built into the budget, it would have been built into the first year of the budget, i.e. 25, 26 this time, not into the second year of the budget. And I am almost.
I just can't find it in any staff reports, 21, 22,
I'll
23.
try to find the staff report and the amount for you, just,
Yep.
and I'll email it to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Is there
Make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, very good. We can move to our last item, 9.10B. Mr. Robinette, you're up again.
Yeah, I'll just.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
well,
one last.
I'll just make a reminder. So this is an item that was requested on item 12 at the last meeting. And so just for everybody's context, this is representative of a report for the third quarter of last budget year. So the adoption of the new budget occurred in June. So we're in the new budget cycle, which started July 1st. And so this is a representative of a third quarter report that is essentially of a budget that is no longer in effect. And so just to make sure that we're all on that same page as Mr. Robinette gives his report.
Yeah, so kind of leaping off that point, you know, I wanted to start by kind of reminding council where this report stands in the context of our budget. And it's through 9 months, and we utilize something in our system that's monthly cash flows. So with major items, we actually try to say, we know this is going to come in this month or it's going to leave in this month. There's a couple examples in this report that I'll cover where that we got the timing wrong, to be honest with you. It left earlier in the case of a debt payment than we thought. And in the case of property tax, I haven't quite figured out what the issue is. I'll tell you, I'm hoping that's fixed in the next budget because those items that we do monthly estimates on, we always revise them. We kind of look back 5 years and we say, okay, where did that get paid or where did it come in, and try to revise it. Property tax is always the example I bring up to people of what these monthly cash flow estimates are. So this report is a measurement against those monthly cash flow estimates. So there is some, I'll say, noise. I think I always comment on this noise in regards to the fire department overtime budget. Fire department overtime budget, while we are in fire season, effectively it just kind of got started. And most of their overtime happens in July, August, September, October. But we take their overtime budget and we say, yeah, just divide that by 12, even though we know there's these large peaks. And so most of our budget lines are divided by 12, but there are situations, i.e. property tax, where we know that the bulk of it is going to come in January and then again in May with a little remnant in June. So there's a couple things that I'll point out as we go through the presentation where there might just be a little noise based on the report being a measurement through 9 months. But other than that, I'll get started and I'll kind of walk us through this. So I always start with this overview of the general fund cash balance. And I always feel like a little bit of a broken record talking about the V pattern of the cash. So our council policy is specific to year-end cash. So it requires us to be 10% at the year end. This V pattern is it's probably common amongst most general funds, especially general funds that receive a large amount of property tax. I certainly, I think I've been presenting this report since 2018, 2019 timeframe, probably 2019. I've never presented a report where it was negative in December, but it certainly has been in years past. And so as we start to have a lower cash balance, we're going to see this kind of V pattern get lower at all points of the V pattern. I will point out that in March, there's some, I'd say, adjustments that were not done by finance that easily could have been done. So one example of that is streets, and I'll try to walk council through what I mean by that. Streets is a general fund department, meaning any expenses that are incurred by streets are incurred out of the general fund. But streets is fully paid for by gas tax. And so historically speaking, what we've done, at least over the past 4 or 5 years, is we've made the transfer at fiscal year end. So that means the general fund is incurring expenses that can be reimbursed by the gas tax. As I mentioned in the staff report, that's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $7 million that could have been reimbursed to the general fund through March. Through the end of the year, we think that number will be somewhere between 10 and 11 million. I did write down, just for context, the gas tax, like total amended budget right now, or streets amended budget, not gas tax, it'll be reimbursed by streets, is adjusted 19.3 million. And so there's up to 19.3 million that could have been fronted by the general fund through the course of this fiscal year. It wasn't, they're under that, and Director Webb could speak to why that is. But what I'm observing is a larger demand of the general fund from the gas tax, kind of what will be fronted by gas tax. And so I've talked to my staff already. We're going to make sure that it's completely on the up and up. But I think we're going to transition, just in the sake of transparency and trying to give better information to council and the decision makers, to trying to look at the transfer that we could do from gas tax, which is held in a separate fund, to the general fund on a quarterly basis. That way, we're not fronting, in this case, $7 million out of the general fund that literally tomorrow we can make a journal entry if we needed to and put the money back in the general fund. So, and as gas tax has gone up due to higher gas prices and new taxes, i.e. SB1, frankly, the budget in the streets department is larger. The adopted budget we just adopted is about $11.3 million per year. That's without any carryovers. In the gas tax, well, there's 2 different gas tax funds. There's gas taxes, which includes a variety of state and federal gas taxes, and there's the LTF and the TDA monies. So we hold them in 2 different funds. As of March 31st, there was about $16 million in there. As of June, the end of June, there's about $20 million in there. So of the available amount, we won't transfer all of it, and we can only transfer to the amount of expenses we've incurred. So that's one item I found as I was going through the cash. Another item is we're in the process of fires billing out the SAFER grant. We were owed through March 31st about $1.6 million. So that's not in cash, but another item where we've kind of fronted it for that granting agency. That's just one example of a grant where we haven't billed it, and that's a large amount. That's why I'm drawing it to the attention. Another area, I probably found about $1 million that are frankly just cleanup that my department and my staff needs to work on getting done. We put a bulk of that effort into June. So we do it right now in preparation for the year-end report that comes to council. So my department is going through and seeing did people not charge their time correctly, things that should have been charged that weren't charged appropriately, i.e. we found fire needs to charge, they haven't properly charged RU for the SAFER, or for the wildfire mitigation positions. So just things like that. There's another $1 million to $1.5 million right there so just to kind of give council a sense of the type of work that needs to be performed before we can really declare cash done is all of that kind of stuff, and I'm just scratching the surface. If I had my accountants here, they could probably list off a laundry list of things they're working on right now to prepare for that year-end report that comes to council that's on a budgetary basis, and also to prepare, frankly, for the presentation of our ACFR and our auditors coming in at fiscal year-end as well. So, and that's a lengthy process. It starts with kind of, I call it cleaning up the budget, making sure everything's in the right spot, nothing's been put in the wrong account. We do our best to kind of validate that as we go along, but we certainly find things sometimes that are mistakenly put in an account or not charged appropriately. So at year end, the current 10-year plan, which as Barry alluded to, we now have adopted a new 10-year plan. But the current 10-year plan and frankly, the beginning cash that we're estimating are not too different in the new 10-year plan would be below a 10% reserve. And so the new adopted 10-year plan actually forecasts us to rebuild our reserves in the first year more substantially, in the second year slightly, and then kind of rebuild our reserves back to 10%. And I think it maintains 10% through year 5, and then it would drop back down in year 6. So long-winded way of saying this pattern is normal. Point out some of the things that maybe the finance department hasn't completed as of yet, but we are in the process of completing those things. And I'll get into the rest of the report. This right here is just a high-level overview. The next couple slides will break down kind of the details of some of this. So as you can see there, I always tell people the set of graphs on the left, we would like to see the dark blue be above the light blue. That means revenues are exceeding the budget projection through March. In this case, it is not. I'll get into the details of why on the next slide. But that effectively means you've gotten more money than you thought you were going to get. That hasn't happened in this case. And then the set on the right, we want the dark blue to be below the light blue because that means you're not spending all of the money allocated through budget appropriations. As you can see there, we're 1.6 million under on revenue and 2.1 million under on expenses. This graph, I always like to remind council, anything below the line is indicative of something that's not meeting current cash flow projections, and anything above the line is exceeding cash flow projections. So the major item I kind of wanted to point out, really talk about all the tax revenues, and the next slide I'll also have an opportunity to do that. But property tax, there's a timing issue in there. I included, because of the timing of this report, I was able to go ahead and include through June numbers because there's not, on a budgetary basis, there's really nothing left to do in order to properly report any of the taxes, frankly. So there was a secondary graph included, or chart included for council that shows the actual taxes through June. And you can see that property tax actually exceeded through June our revenue forecast, which tells me timing issue in this report here, that by the year end was corrected. Sales tax certainly still below through year end, transient occupancy tax below the projections, and cannabis tax and other taxes. I also, at this point, kind of new internal departments. Those are transfers between our departments. That's simply a timing issue of some of the work that's been done in the finance department. When is the appropriation transfer? Most of it has to do with something called rolling stock. So we do AT, what's called an AT, to move the money out of rolling stock, and then we actually do the cash transfer. Sometimes those things don't perfectly align, so again, just some noise in terms of when the work is happening on the budget front versus the actual cash movement front. Also, on this slide, I like to point out to council, and I alluded to it earlier, but we have revenue from other governments. It's kind of lumpy the way it comes in because you just kind of forecast that you're going to get it in even increments. But i.e., in the case of SAFER grant, we're due about $1.6 million through March. I know the fire department's actively working on getting that billed out, and we would expect to see that money here early in the year. And then finally, when I get to the other graph, I wrote down a variety of things that are driving this. The other item kind of becomes a catch-all of the things that aren't listed. But sports park revenue is the first one. Through March, they had about $230,000 of revenue that we did not budget. If council remembers, when we made the decision to reopen the sports park, we went very conservative and we said, hey, there will be no revenues. And council needs to plan on spending, about $250,000. I can't remember the exact number. And so this is indicative. Like I said, there's $230,000 right there through March of revenues that are over and above our projection. Additionally, fire build out for overtime reimbursement of $2.1 million. So again, not a forecasted revenue. We certainly know we're going to get it when we work the overtime, but we don't budget for it with council action. And then actually RPD has some of the new agreements we've discussed with council around funding, i.e. a school resource officer. They are in place and we're receiving those. So it's in excess of our forecasted total year to date. And also actually police received some reimbursement revenue from some mutual aid responses that they had as well. And so those are the major items that are causing us to be over the projection through March. As I alluded to, we're going to talk about tax revenues, and I'll do my best to not bore council too much. But this graph, I always think it's useful, but it shows council all of our tax revenues basically for a 3-year kind of view. And the thing that I guess I find most fascinating at this point is it's now lopped off the year that was significantly higher than any of these 3 years, and in many ways kind of started this downward of our budget and the pressure on our budget. And so as you can see there, sales tax is mostly flat. Some people might say, well, if it's flat, then why is it causing any kind of budgetary problem? Well, that, as we discussed with council during our budget development, we assume that revenues are going to increase. So the second it's flat means you're below your assumption. Property tax continues to be an area of strength, and frankly, if it wasn't for our budget issues, and if it wasn't for property tax, we'd probably have more budget issues. But the good news in property tax, I would be excitedly telling council about, because really as a city, the more property tax you have, the less volatile your projections are. It's because property tax takes longer to come down in a recession, and frankly, it's usually slower to go up. And so when you look at our budget we just adopted, to have almost a property tax and sales tax be equal is a great news for us, but it's in the midst of a lot of kind of negative news that we've been sharing with council. So I do want to kind of point that out. TOT continues to be flat, cannabis more or less flat. But the big takeaway for me on this slide is just to talk about, well, what did we forecast, not just in this budget, but in the budget, as Barry alluded to, that was just adopted by council. And so I want to remind council we adopted a budget for 23-24 and 24-25. In September of 2024, we lowered the assumptions in most of the tax revenues except for property tax. We increased it. And then as you embark on building a new biennial budget, you actually need to go in and look at your 24-25 and say, well, what do I think it's going to be? We're 6, 7, 8 months into it. Where do I think we're going to end? And I know we had this conversation with council, but I thought it would be a helpful reminder. And so I'm just going to read a few numbers off. I don't mean to bore anybody, but sales tax as an example, our amended number that we council approved in September was $31.5 million. When we went to build the new 10-year plan, we used $30.7 million as the starting point that would then build our 2% assumption for sales tax. We are slightly below that, but I think it's helpful for council to kind of know, well, okay, I see the trend here, but where does it relate to the trend of the new budget that we just forecasted? And then property tax, we amended it to 29.2. When we built the new 10-year plan, we said 29.7, and we actually received 29.8 as an example. And then TOT was amended to 7.5 in September. With the 10-year plan building, we used 7.3 as a starting point. We finished the year at about 7.2, so slightly off. So this is the kind of thing I think is important for decision makers as we start to think about the third quarter and where it stands, is how does it measure up to the new forecast? Because what's going to be super important for council and city manager and everybody is to continue to monitor how we're progressing against that new budget, because as I keep saying, and I think frankly our cash reserves are saying it to everybody as well, we are going to have to be quicker to act. And so if revenues come in below those forecasts, and we substantially can see that it's below the forecast across the board, frankly, there's going to have to be more decisions made to make hard decisions that would require more cuts, in my opinion. Alternatively, if revenues come in over, then it buys us probably additional time to make those hard decisions. Moving on to kind of the last slide, I don't want to gloss over it, but again, this is a rough forecast to give council a pulse of how we're trending. Police, over budget slightly. So now the ones that are below the line are over budget, above the line they have savings. I'll start with police. It's over budget slightly, mostly due to retirements and cash outs. Again, as we go through the year-end process, we will analyze that number, determine the magnitude at which it's over budget. If it's over budget, again, there's, you're talking 9 months, 12 months. So if you looked at this over 12 months, they're not over budget. I don't anticipate that once we do all our cleanup work that they will be over budget. Actually, in this line, there was an item found where I'm pretty sure there's, frankly, some data issues with our new payroll system. We went live in the beginning of November there, and I found there's a police IT budget that should be zero to us because it's shared amongst all, and then we pay into that actually had expense in there. So that's an example is $300,000-$400,000 where we're going to figure out what's going on there, get the right story, make the adjustments if they're necessary and required and allowable. But I'm pretty sure in that case it is. In the case of fire, they're the largest over budget. I can tell you there's cross charges to REU that we need to true up, so to speak, for wildfire mitigation, make sure they're charging at the right amount for the work performed. There's the overtime for the out of county, $2.1 million that we will recognize in there for any overages and overtime. And then I always point this out, but there's a seasonality, especially to their overtime budget. 9 months through the year, it's starting to get more normal, but we kind of need those last 3 months to know if it normalized enough to not be over budget in total. There is some potential that fire will need a request at year end to council, and we'll report that back in September. I also want to point out general government. There was a over $1 million debt service payment made that we forecasted it would be made in April 1st. Looked at the documentation today, and I could see why somebody may have thought that. But when the bank sent us the invoice, it was due on March 17th. So not to bore council, but that's just a large example where we actually project that to go out in April, and it went out in March. And so now it looks like it's over budget year to date through March. By the end of the year, it's not over budget, and I've confirmed that. So with that, I'm available for any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Robinette. Councilmember Audette.
So I agree we should be quicker to act. I don't know that I would agree that this is normal. I went back to 2017 to see if we've ever been at a negative in a Q3, and I couldn't find any time that we've ever been, even when we were having budget issues in 2019. I've never seen a negative. So I do think it is a cause for concern. I think you've categorized it as noise, but I do think it's very concerning. And so I'd like to be a part of monitoring this quicker. So I would like to see the proof of cash every month. When do you plan to start providing that report again?
So, I mean, we're working on all of our reporting. Cash is part of that. We're going to get the reports by September in this report. The cash report is hopefully going to be part of that. I'm already working with my staff on that, just determining when we can get that done and get it updated.
Cash report is a monthly report.
Monthly report, yep.
Yeah, so I want to know when you're going to start providing the especially since, in Q2, we did not get a cash report. We did not get a total of what we actually had in cash. It only said what our starting balance, it just repeated what our starting balance was in the 10-year, but you did not report our cash.
In this report?
In Q2, there was no cash report.
It would have been in this report.
And in this Q3, there is a cash report, and it's negative, but I'm assuming that it was also negative in December.
In Q2, I always include this, so I actually checked it to my numbers on that.
The staff report did not have a cash balance.
I'd have to look at it. I don't have it in front of me, so I'll look at it, and if I see it, I'll send you a screen grab if I don't.
As noted to the council previously, we are endeavoring to have the updated reports available for the council for September. And
Sure.
that is what we're shooting for, and that is what we're committed to.
Sure, but the negative cash balance that did exist in Q2 was not included in that report. And in the Q3, this negative cash, we actually didn't get this in May, which is a violation of the policy 412. We are supposed to be getting this type of information, especially when you're in the budget process. Item number 5 says that we need to have this type of information, like what our cash position is, especially if it's gone into the negative in March, which I've never seen. We need to have that information, especially when we're going through the budget process, because as this report says, we are now at 7.2%. We are going to end at 7.2%. So we're not going to begin this next budget at $9 million. We're going to begin it below our 10%. So what is the plan? We are out of our own council policy 412 to be at a 10% reserve.
So there's a lot to unpack there. And so,
Well, I would just note that, we just adopted a new budget, which brings us back into the 10% reserve for the 4 years. The last 2 years of the 6 years of the 10-year plan are at 9.8 and 9.8. So if we are able to work to the budget as adopted, we will have fully recovered back to 10%. And that would be the plan that has been presented and approved by this body. So
I would just like to...
And we'll note that the new reporting will be available starting September, which actually will be the closeout of the last fiscal year. And then the next first quarter report will be after that, which will be the first quarter reporting of this fiscal year.
So this report says that we are going to end the year at 7.9 million in cash. And and from all the other information that you provided, revenues are down, expenses are obviously, we looked at the chart, expenses are over revenues. So we're not going to be bringing any extra money in.
certainly, but I don't want to oversimplify this.
Let me step in. So this is the third quarter report. So a lot of things happened in the last quarter. So that hopefully has some positive information in terms of cash balance. As we close out this year, this last year, we'll be able to provide a better estimate of actual cash in September, which is what typically happens. I'll remind the council, and I think you recall this. We actually had an anticipated end of cash when we adopted the budget, about $22.5 million, I think it was. And by September, when we closed the books, that number was actually 21, and we made some adjustments because we did the full closeout. As we do the full closeout, we'll have a better idea, but I would be hesitant for the council to continue to have discussions about a cash reserve at the end of the fiscal year based on a third quarter report for the budget that doesn't exist.
Well,
But that's clearly
it does
up-
exist
that's
because we have
clearly
to
up to
close
the
it out.
council.
So I have a question. Can you provide us a list of what the carryovers are going to be into this new budget?
Absolutely. Actually, Barry and I have already had that discussion. I felt like, and one of the weaknesses that will be displayed in the new reporting is around carryovers, particularly around encumbrance carryovers. The new system operates very different than our old system did, not in a bad way, it's just different. And I told Barry just the other day, as I've been working on the reporting, I said, I think it would be good as part of the reporting to include an encumbrance report, so that an encumbrance and carryover report, so that council's aware of everything that's being carried over and they can review it and actually provide it to council. So that was actually, I think it's a great suggestion. Barry and I literally probably 2 or 3 days, well, you were off last week, so it was before that, had that conversation.
So do we know what our total of carryovers are into the new budget?
We won't know that until, so we have to close out, So we have to close out the fiscal year. And so we're in the process of doing that right now. And I'd say we're closing it out for budgetary purposes.
Sure.
So I don't want to mislead council, and I hate to correct the city manager, but in September, we're still closing. So to get a staff report to council for September, whatever the second meeting in September is, that means I needed all that information done by the end of August, frankly. And we are still working towards a final cash number well through September that then gets audited by our auditors. They usually show up in October. That's our goal this year. And so some of my hesitation when you ask about maybe the ACR 133 or something like that is I know how hard my staff's going to be working over the next few months. And not to say that's not important. That's not what I'm suggesting. I know what's happened with this ERP. We've lost people because of the workload. And so a priority for me and my team right now is to get that audit done on time. And so I'm just trying to, as you ask the question, just trying to determine where we're going to fit it in. But back to your question is, we don't really close out our books. We provide trial balances and financial reports. End of October is kind of the first stab at those, and we don't provide them to the auditors until beginning of October. We have them done. We review them, send them to the auditors in late October. There's some balancing processes we go through. Until that's done, we don't really have a true cash number. I have a better pulse of the cash number that I can give to council in September, but we don't have an audited cash number.
Until October?
No, that we won't report on that to council until, I'll report to council second meeting in January. And then really we don't update the number with the 10-year plan until February, because there are adjustments we do for carryovers. But to get back to carryovers, which is where this conversation kind of originated, is we have to first kind of get our books, I'll call it preliminarily closed. In the AS400, a couple of years ago, we would have something called a first close, which was effectively like our budget reporting close. We're in the process of doing that. We'll get that done by the end of July. And then what happens from there is two things happen. First, we ask departments to tell us, do you have anything that's over budget? If it's the end of the first year of a budget, we also ask them to forecast, hey, what's going on for the second year? And we ask them to give us their budget requests for year 1 and year 2. This is only year 2, so it's a little easier. We should know what's coming. And then after they do that, then we start talking about carryovers, because not only do they need to have enough budget to do there needs to be extra budget to do a carryover. If they do not have additional budget, they can't request a carryover. And so then they provide a separate list to say, we would like to carry these things over, and here's why. That list gets provided to each of the liaisons in the finance department, gets reviewed by a finance officer, will get reviewed by myself, and get reviewed by, and ultimately the authority rests with the city manager. He reviews and makes those approvals. So that's the process.
Yes, for the last budget cycle, there was $27 million of carryovers, which included personnel. So I just want to make sure that that's not going to happen again, that we will not be putting personnel costs into the carryovers like we did in the 23-24. It was $27 million.
I don't know where we got that number. I would need to see that number and
It was your report. It's your Q4 report for 2023.
I think he's saying that he doesn't have that report in front of him.
Yeah,
and so speaking to that
speaking
item.
to that report, you're claiming there was $27 million. I don't know. I can't speak to that number. I also can't speak to how much of it was in personnel or wasn't, and what the cause of that might be. So I'd like to see the report you're looking at.
Will we be continuing? I know we haven't done that before. That's the first time I'd seen it. So are you going to carry this practice of doing carryovers of personnel costs?
I'm unaware of that happening. Barry's also...
Well, I'll give you an example. So for police, all the ARPA funding was put into capital outlay so that it could get carried over. And so when I'm looking for ARPA funds and
That's been done for a long time. So categorizing it as personnel, fair, but we've done that for a long time. Dating back to the AS400 years, they used to all be capital accounts. Now we're using something called a dedicated expense account. So what that allows us to do is we go to council and we say, hey, we intend to spend $5 million over 5 years on police officers. They're going to cost $1 million a year. This allows us, if it's a case of a grant, we don't have to continue to come back to council and say, hey, now we need another million, another million, another million. And so that's been done that way for many, many years. It's not unusual. It's very normal.
When you provided me the budget that I hadn't seen, the budget to actuals for the 23-24 year, it had $7.9 million for an encumbered number for the police that had been previously approved. So that's what I was asking for. I asked you for a report on that. Where did that come from? That was a carryover that got categorized.
Yeah, most of it would be ARPA. I could give you the breakdown because I did provide
You
that.
did. I asked you
Yeah.
for it and you gave me for that. So that's my point. I didn't see that for another year. So I just don't want to get surprised with what these carryovers
As Barry and I
are.
talked about, and I seriously think it's a great point, providing some transparency to council around what's going on with carryovers, i.e. ARPA is a great example. Hey, here's the amount still remaining. It almost is a built-in, you asked Travis for a grant report. It's almost would act as a little bit of that too, because what we find a lot of our carryovers are driven by grant and funding
Yes,
sources.
yes.
And so I think it would serve a
It
little bit
gets
of that.
confusing as
Yeah.
to exactly where that budget is coming from and what it's for because it's not being categorized in a way that would make sense.
Yeah.
So the cash report, the carryover report, and then can we get a report about how much has been billed towards streets so we have an idea of how much of that will
Yeah,
actually
it's
get
not
to go
really
in?
a billing, but yeah, I could provide you a report of how much has been spent. I kind of tried to estimate that through the end of March, but I'll provide you, frankly, with September would be a great time because during September is when we do something called the Streets Report, which is kind of our year-end closeout of streets activities.
So
And
we know what
I'll-
we bill, yeah.
I'll know exactly what we're able, it's not a billing, it's more, I'm just saying, it's sitting in a fund that we have control over, and I'm now legally able to say, we spent this, we will do a transfer into the general fund. So
And
yeah,
that
I'll
typically
provide
happens in September?
Yeah, like I said during my presentation, I think it's prudent for us to evaluate doing that quarterly now, just given the sheer magnitude of what streets and gas taxes become to our budget. And then also, frankly, the condition of the general fund, I think, requires us to think, should we be putting that money in the general fund as opposing to just fronting it out of the general fund and letting the money sit over in our gas tax, their special revenue fund, not to.
Well, does it
go off
collect any
It collects interest over
Yeah,
there.
which is good.
Yes.
Right?
The question would be, though, would you prefer for that interest to be collected into the general fund? So it's, do we want more streets or do we want more general fund services? Great question. But I think right now where we stand, I think for transparency, I have my team looking into making sure legally we could do a quarterly transfer.
Have we not done quarterly transfers before?
No, I could
We
tell you.
only did it at the end of the year.
Yeah, I could tell you when I first started here, there's probably somebody out there in the world that knows why. But we used to do like an estimate transfer in March, March-ish, March, April, sometime in that time frame. We would do an estimate of gas taxes that we would receive. And the accountant who did it had no idea what it was based on. And so when our general fund was healthy, we just said, hey, we don't really need that cash in the general fund because the general fund was super healthy to the point where, like I said, like I alluded to, when I was reporting to council starting in around 2019, I never even saw the general fund go negative in December, but I was aware of it anecdotally through watching these updates prior to me actually presenting them, right? So I didn't even know that would happen in December, because when I was presenting, it was very normal other than that I had watched previously. And so I think, we're going to try to get back more to, and I'm not just going to do some arbitrary number. I think we're going to determine what we're allowed to do under the statute because we hold that money. As I said, we held $16 million in the gas tax and TDA funds at the end of March. And then by the end of June, it's over 20 million now. And so that's all money that can offset the expenses that were incurred in streets up to the legal limitations, right? And so I'll certainly provide council that report.
Are you saying that we have 20 million to spend on streets
Yes, ma'am.
every year?
Not every year. That's the balance of cash.
But we have like 10 million every year that we could be spending on streets?
Well, about 11.
Does that mean administration as well?
10 to 11. I'm
Is
looking
that
at
like
Michael.
admin as well as the actual
Mhm.
streets?
Yeah.
So is that the offset? Is it we pay for the people?
There
and
are
then-
certain, I'd call it general fund required maintenance. It's not a lot of money, but they term it as general fund maintenance. And so there's certain contributions we have to make. And that's why I say legally, what can we transfer versus can't, because basically we have an obligation to, I don't want to call it a match, but it's kind of like a match, right? It's almost like a grant match of saying, hey, the general fund has to contribute something. Those are identified in our streets report every year. I could give council a more formal breakdown.
Can we get a streets reports this year?
You would like me to bring it to you?
I would love one.
If
I mean,
council's,
people very deeply care about the
if
streets.
council is interested in that, I might tag team that. If I'm looking at Barry, if we're going to do that, it might be good to tag team it with Michael because frankly, you're probably more interested in the operational stuff than you are the financial stuff.
I'm interested in how much we're spending on streets.
Absolutely. We can provide an update on that.
Yeah, and that includes, of course, all staffing, trucks, all that sort of stuff, not just capital construction projects.
It's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We don't need a vote on this or anything, just a report. Okay.
No, just cry.
Great job. Thank you very much.
General fund.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, last I looked, not to make this a little league night, but West Reading All-Stars were tied in the 8th inning, 10-10. and they play 6 innings. So I know, Little League guy here talking about Little League.
Oh, boy.
I'll look it up. I'll update it for you.
All right. Council travel reports?
No, you're not.
No, you got one more.
Oh, we got one more? Oh, jeez. I was so excited. We were done. All right. Sorry, Mr. Webb. Resolution to enter into Sacramento River Settlement Contractors Drought Protection Program. Take it away.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. There we go. Thank you. I'm going to give it 1 second until there we go. So before you tonight to give a presentation regarding the Drought Protection Program Supplemental Agreement that we are recommending that this body authorizes us to enter into. So I'm going to jump into this. It's a little complicated, but I'm going to try and run through the presentation as swiftly as possible, and I will be available for questions and answers at the end. So you might be asking yourself, what is the Drought Protection Program? This is a supplementary agreement between the Sacramento River Settlement Contractors and the Bureau of Reclamation. You're probably now asking yourself, what are the Sacramento River Settlement Contractors? Well, we are one of many Sacramento River Settlement Contractors that are essentially agricultural, irrigation districts, other municipalities, Redding Rancheria, and a number of other water users that were pulling water out of the Sacramento River prior to the construction of Shasta Dam. And when the dam was constructed, the Bureau of Reclamation entered into an agreement with those water users to make sure that those folks still were able to use the water they were using pre the construction of the dam. And a number of years ago, I believe 2 city engineers ago now, it was Mr. Brian Crane, 2005-ish, was presented with an opportunity for the city of Redding to essentially pool their collective resources with a number of these other agencies, and we formed the Sacramento River Settlement Contractor Group because everyone was interested in making sure that our water rights and availability we were all negotiating on one path with the Bureau of Reclamation. So with that, we currently have what I would call a overarching or mother agreement, if you will, that has a 40-year term, and that agreement is roughly about halfway over. In this supplementary agreement, if you will, the Drought Protection Program has a 20-year term, meaning that both the overarching agreement and the supplementary agreement will essentially terminate or end at the same time. And what this supplementary agreement does is it provides improved surface water reliability by giving higher carryover storage in Shasta Lake. It also provides funding for each of the Sacramento River Settlement Contractors so that we can shore up our water sources so we're more resilient in times of critical droughts. So a little bit more on the background. I kind of jumped ahead of myself there. There are 135 Sacramento River Settlement Contractors. We are one of them. Totals roughly about 2.1 million acre feet of water from the Central Valley Project. Our contract, or our portion of that, is roughly 21,000 acre feet. Just for comparison purposes, ACID, Anderson Cottonwood Irrigation District, they are another Sacramento River Settlement Contractor, and they pull water out of the river just not too far from here over by Market Street Bridge. Their contract amount is 125,000 acre feet. And another just little tidbit or fact there is Bella Vista Water District, one of our neighboring water agencies. They are not a Sacramento River Settlement Contractor. However, they have the right to roughly 24,500 acre feet of water. And you'll notice the asterisks there and the little note down at the bottom. Because they are not a Sacramento River Settlement Contractor, in times of critical years and water shortages, the non-Sacramento River Settlement Contractors are cut sooner and sharper than we are. And so that is an important note there. As part of the Drought Protection Program, there's roughly $250 million worth of funding that is available to the Sacramento River Settlement Contractors. And our portion of that is just under $2.4 million. which is a good segue for me to point out that I do have a typo in the staff report that's before you. I want to say on the first page, I have under the fiscal impact, $2.25 million, and that should read 2.4. So my apologies there. The exact amount is up in the recommendations at $2.388 million. You might be asking yourself, why the need for the drought protection program? Well, the reality is back in 2022, the city received 18% of its allocation. So again, the 21,000 acre feet. That was a pretty bad year across the state and probably the Western United States in the world of water. Within the Sacramento River Settlement Contractor itself, we saw roughly 370,000 acres of farmland fallowed, so essentially not farmed, lost. It was estimated there was a hit to the regional economy of approximately $1.3 billion. We had low salmon survival rates, and there were a number of communities that were impacted, and it was really devastating. So the thought of this supplementary agreement is to avoid, or the main concept I should say, is to avoid a repeat of 2022. And so that the key overarching points of the DPP are that during drought years, each SRSC member will not receive less than 50% of their allocation. So I do want to note that the overarching agreement as it is written right now talks about each agency not receiving less than 75% of their water allocation. So technically, this supplementary agreement allows the Bureau, under certain conditions, to further our cut down to 50%. However, we do receive $2.4 million for the 20-year period, which has to be used for water resiliency and other types of projects. And I will remind council that $2.4 million may sound like a lot of money. It really is not in the world of the water utility. It would cost us roughly 2 to 3 times that just to drill a new well. So it isn't a large amount of money. The biggest benefit of this agreement is that a number of agencies and bodies were all part of the bargaining, if you will. And the intent is to avoid another 2022 when an NGO, non-governmental organization, sued the Bureau, and then essentially a judge came in and made a determination of how the little bit of water was going to be spread out. And so we are trying to avoid that based on the DPP and the Bureau's work with the other NGOs and everybody who's trying to use that limited precious resource, water. I should also note that the Bureau has, if I recall correctly, and I may need to lean on Josh and Ryan here, but the Bureau itself has a large chunk of change that they're investing in their infrastructure to make sure that they're managing that precious resource water as efficiently as possible, and that we're starting each spring or summer with full reservoirs as much as possible. So I touched on briefly, funding for projects, and by entering into this agreement, $2.4 million comes our way. It could fund a number of projects. The team and I are looking into what potentials we would have there, but we could partially fund a new well south of the airport. We could look at well rehabilitation and or treatment, or a slew of other projects that would essentially strengthen our network of groundwater wells. And that would be the main purpose or intent of the $2.4 million. And of course, this funding not being part of the budget that was recently authorized, once we would identify those projects, we would come back to council to authorize and identify those projects and formally make them part of the budget. I know that's a mouthful and a lot of information. I fully suspect some questions, so I'm happy to entertain any questions that council may have.
Councilmember Rodette.
So it's a 20-year agreement. They're not going to give us 2.4 if they have to reduce it. They're just going to give you 2.4, like a signing bonus for agreeing to do it?
Well, first of all, they're not giving it to me. But second, yes.
Work harder, yeah.
Yeah, so we would get that after inking the deal. and another important, or be eligible for reimbursement, I should say, after inking the deal. Another key data point is, as I mentioned before, there were a number of SRSC members. We are the last of the larger 40. So that would be the folks that use more than 1,000 acre feet of water. We are the last one to be talking about inking this deal. And that is predominantly because when the water utility staff presented this to me, it took quite a while for me to get on board and understand the inner workings of this. And they had to put up with a lot of questions that I had that are probably very similar to the questions that each of you have.
So it's a 20-year agreement. They're going to give you $2.4 million in reimbursements on these projects if you agree to it. But if you don't agree to it, then what happens?
We're subject to it and we don't get the money.
We're still subject to it, right? Like they can still enforce whatever restrictions that they want. This just says you agreed to it. Don't bellyache. We gave you $2.4 million.
Yes, essentially as us being a SRSC member, we pay annually $15,000 to $18,000 or so, and we're a voting member of there. Assistant Director Ryan Bailey is on that, and that group is the group that negotiates with the Bureau. We have attorneys that are on call and a whole slew of members that go through that negotiation process with the Bureau of Reclamation. So I would describe them as biggest brother, being the federal government, in that they're negotiating on behalf of the entire SRSC group what they feel is best for them to make sure that our water rights are preserved and protected as much as possible. And they're bringing into that fold all of the other agencies, folks, the environmental group, everyone who feels that they have a need, want, desire, or right to that water. And I've learned very quickly in my time here at the city that that can be a very interesting.
Yes, it is. I think the quote is "Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting." But we take 22,000 acre feet. Is that correct? We take
21,000.
21,000. Is that the largest amount that we take from anywhere, or is that just what percentage is that of our?
That's a good chunk.
That's
it's
a good
over
chunk.
half of the water that we use. It is a key asset the city has. So in general, what happens is during the summertime, that is when we pull from the river, because similar to Director Zettel and the electric utility, the water utility's highest water usage rates occur during the summer when folks are watering lawns and doing all that sort of stuff. So during the summer, that's when we're pulling our allocation out of the river. We send it to our water treatment plants. We treat it. We put it in the system. Folks have quality, safe, good water at their house. During the winter, when we're not watering our lawns or swimming pools or whatever we're using water for, the usage drops considerably, and we tend to rely a lot more on our groundwater network, the 17 or 18 wells we have over the aquifer. And what we do at that point is when we perform the critical maintenance to the water treatment plant, because technically there are months where we don't need to pull water out of the river to meet our water demands.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for asking all the questions.
No problem.
All right.
Just a quick question.
Yes, please.
In terms of drought protection, are there any long-term plans? Like I know about site reservoir, that's not part of this probably, right? So are there any other plans to build some kind of reservoir as part of this or not?
So I'm not privy to any plans that the Bureau has to make improvements to their infrastructure, but like I mentioned, they have a large amount of money. I want to say it was around $500 million that they have slated to make improvements to their infrastructure. Now I do want to make it clear that the Sites Reservoir, I believe that's a state project, so we do have to be careful when we're talking state and federal water. They do intermingle, and they are related, but they are different from many perspectives.
Right, so that's not related to this at all?
Nope.
But, so they don't have any additional reservoir project?
I'm not aware of any. No.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'm entertaining a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now
Thank you,
can
Mr.
ask-
Webb.
Now you can ask for travel.
Thank you so much. Travel reports.
I did go to the Regional Cal City Conference in Rancho Cordova, and we visited Office of Emergency Services at state level. So some interesting information, and I would like to kind of, they have a lot of points they monitor, as everyone knows, and probably will connect them also to see how we can educate our public for that.
Thank you. All right.
Not nearly as good a time as we had when we all went
No,
there,
no,
is
no.
that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I have pictures of somebody sleeping.
That's not for public consumption, right?
Okay, yeah, no, sorry. All right. Item 12, suggestions.
Two suggestions for the future. I wanted to ask, what's the timeline for bringing the riverfront plan back?
The riverfront plan was, so we're currently working on the EIR as authorized by the council and developing the plan. I think it'll probably be back fall-ish for 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Maybe we can connect separately. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the progress. Second question was about, there have been some concerns which I've heard about, especially with the budget cuts and all that, the park maintenance, especially with the South City Park. And would you be, I mean, I know you are planning for department-based updates, and maybe the park department can update us for those things in the future.
Sure. We can just make community services, maybe we break up into a couple segments, but parks maintenance could be one that they present on.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you.
Wait, he already hit it, so.
I didn't hear you. You were going to talk. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd like an accounting on ARPA, on what we've actually expelled with this, and what we have still left to go.
Okay. If council wants that?
I don't know what's left. Do you know what's left?
I don't.
Couple.
Yeah, can we get in the
Yeah, it'll
categories
be in the
that they're
carry.
still
Yeah,
in?
most of that'll be in the carryovers, but we're happy to provide an ARPA update.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, we report every 3 months to the feds on that, so.
Okay, so right around then, when they get it, we should get it. Yeah, sounds great. Yep.
Okay. Done.
Thank you.
Now we're adjourned.
Aaron.